obligatory audio check, yeah.
The obligatory audio check, and they're making sure
Because sometimes it literally just doesn't work.
Yeah, sometimes. Or you sound like you're in a cave and it's echoey for no reason for like 10 minutes of and then it fixes itself. And you don't know why. Because
that happens to us.
You're not an audio
Sometimes
engineer.
Cameras just don't work.
Sometimes cameras just don't work. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not an audio engineer. I'm teaching I like had to teach myself how to use the Yeti mic. Sorry?
You don't know why.
I said we hear Justin. That's important.
You're not in the camera.
Yep, we're good.
We can hear everyone? Excellent. Okay. And obviously, I don't have to tell you how this works, Jake. I gotta get through the intro. See, this is all that's so cool.
I need to ship this to you guys actually.
And you
That's
know,
awesome.
You know, I know
This is your reward.
I know I gave you previously the our postal office, but now you kind of have an idea of where we are more specifically. You could probably just send it there, if you get my drift, without going into details.
I mean, it's wow, went over my head. Yeah. I'll just send it there.
Yeah.
But Canada, if they hit you with an import tax, I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's worth it. It's gonna go right.
Because Canada,
it's gonna go like that.
Canada sucks that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It does indeed.
I couldn't believe it. I sent a buddy of mine that lives in Toronto. I sent him an old used webcam and an old used microphone, and they charged him because they asked me at FedEx. They were like, "Do you want to pay the import tax?" I was like, "Fucking import tax? No, I'm not paying a goddamn import tax. It's a gift." And then he didn't say anything else, so I'm like, "What was that optional?" Or like, I don't understand what you're talking about because I've sent stuff to Canada before. I guess just nobody mentioned it to me. But then he said he was like, "Yeah, they totally hit me with a $60 import tax," and I was like, "Oh shit, dude, I'm sorry." He's like, "I don't care. I didn't pay it."
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know. Okay, I'll pay it. That's sweet. Yeah, that's gonna go right. It's gonna go right over my shoulder. But so I gotta get through the intro to the thing. But YouTube gets all this preamble because we like YouTube exclusive content because we're SEO, a search engine optimized friendly. So 3, 2, 1. This podcast is brought to you by the Arete Podcast Pantheon. Please head to aretemedia.org to see plenty of podcasts from our great friends, as well as, if you want to start your own podcast, they have all sorts of great resources to do so there. Please head to aretemedia.org. That's ARETE media.org. On with the show, fellas?
And
on with the show.
And today on Fresh Air, we will be discussing the end of the world.
It's
and
so
what it means for you.
It's so weird because one of those friends is here today. Welcome to the Spur of the Moment podcast, everybody. I am your host, Justin Spurr, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, the incomparable Jordan. And today we are joined.
It's going to be super awkward if Jordan's not below me on the screen right now.
He is. Yeah.
That's real lucky because I thought right after I was poking, I'm like, wow, I might be pointing at my dick.
I mean, you also are, and joined with us
But I'm pointing through it.
He's already making a spectacle of himself. Today we are joined by the host of Down the Middle Podcast, the Average Intelligence Podcast, Toon Talk 2.0, my personal favorite, the Arete Podcast, for with we would not exist. It's Jake, everybody. Our podcast boss.
I would actually chop that up to TikTok more than me, but thank you.
And today,
Welcome.
as Jake has already mentioned, it's the end of the world as we know it, and we feel fine. I think we feel fine about it.
I feel pretty fine.
We're gonna be talking apocalypse shit, nonsense, whatever, what have you. It's not all movies. It's not always movies. But first, it's the news.
It's mostly movies.
It's mostly movies. But for starting off with you're derailing the intro, Jordan. We're starting off with the news. We're starting off with the news, including apparently they're making.
Well, I have to interrupt you again. Did you get the joke?
I did. I got that. I did. I got
Okay.
it. I did.
Yeah,
I did.
because it started with an
Absolutely.
earthquake.
Absolutely. Not all of them start with an
Uh,
earthquake. A lot of them start with an earthquake.
Well, first it was great.
First it was Greg. So yeah, they're making a Donald Trump biopic, and Donald Trump doesn't like it very much. We're gonna talk about
Are
that.
you serious?
He doesn't
That's
like
awesome.
He doesn't like it very much. Knives Out.
Please tell me they got Shane Gillis to play Donald Trump.
You're gonna probably be surprised by who's playing him, if you didn't already
Armie
know what's
Hammer.
happening. They're making Knives Out 3. Morgan Spurlock, the Super Size Me guy, died.
heard about that.
Beetlejuice 2 trailer. I've got a review in here for Garfield that says it's better than lasagna for some reason. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It's unclear.
I was gonna say lasagna's trash, so
Oh, see, I love lasagna.
I love lasagna.
So see, now I'm conflicted.
In spite
now
of Garfield.
In spite of Garfield. They're making a Bel Air season 3 for some reason. The producer of Pirates of the Caribbean thinks that Johnny Depp should still be in it, and I got more. But let's start off with that Trump biopic. That Jake, I'm surprised you're surprised to hear about that. That's funny.
I feel like I heard some whispers about it, but I kind of dismissed them because there was an Obama biopic made a few years ago too. Yeah,
Was
that's
there?
what I was saying though. Well, I'm not sure because people talked about it nonstop for like 2 weeks, and then there was allegedly a trailer, but I don't know if it was real or not, or if they just made the trailer. But then nobody talked about it after that, so I'm not sure.
Interesting.
The only biographical thing I've ever seen about Obama was that one episode of The Legends of Tomorrow where they save him from Gorilla Grodd, and they prevent him, or they keep him being president because he needs to be president for the future. If you've never seen that show's amazing because it's weird. But yeah, Donald Trump doesn't like it very much because there is apparently a really gnarly, not algorithm friendly thing that happens to his wife. In that movie. Oh yeah, Sebastian Stan plays Trump, by the way.
Okay. I feel like I did hear that.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
I know, absolutely, it is a choice. But yeah, apparently there is a controversial, not algorithm-friendly thing that happens in that movie to his wife, if you know about Trump and what he's accused of.
I have a question. Justin.
Yes.
Does he grab a certain part of her body?
Yes, he absolutely does. He absolutely does. Yeah,
Oh.
he absolutely does.
It's what I'm known for.
Yeah, he's not happy about that. Apparently, he wants to sue,
among other things.
as he is known to do. But apparently, he's otherwise quite sympathetic to Trump, and apparently, it's good. They're saying apparently got like a standing ovation at Cannes. I'm just kind of baffled.
There's no way that in defense of Donald Trump, there is no way in hell that movie got a standing ovation at Cannes, however you want to pronounce it. If you want to pronounce it fancy or like normal people, Cannes. There's no way in hell that got a standing ovation at Cannes if it's sympathetic to Donald Trump.
That's what I've got 2 articles and they both say that allegedly it is sympathetic to Trump. That's what it says. It portrays him as being kind of a larger than life figure. Again, apparently the movie's quite good. I'm just shocked it's the first one. Like I've got so many. I love Facebook memories because going back and seeing what you thought of stuff and seeing the end of the Trump presidency was me being like, this is definitely where the biopic would end. And this is definitely where the biopic would end. And we're still not at the end of the biopic yet. It's kind of crazy.
Depends on who's making the biopic.
There could be a part 2.
Like I've been like, yeah, there's like some like screenwriter who's like thirsting for like the end of Donald Trump's story so he can option it into a screenplay. Because like, yeah, he's so like when I was a kid, I've only ever seen one truly sympathetic thing towards Donald Trump, and it was this made-for-TV biopic that ends with Mark Burnett meeting with him and pursuing him to do The Apprentice, and it's him being like, but I don't even like firing people, and it's like it portrays him as being a real weenie, which was a really like weird contrary to like how people see him now. It's like that's in my brain how I hit that, and like every cameo he did, like when he showed up in like Home Alone 2, where you're like, yeah, that's Donald Trump. Like, he's just, a guy.
He's just a guy.
Yeah. Very strange.
It's
Anyway.
before the presidency.
Yeah, before the presidency, he was just a guy on The Apprentice.
So not to get to politics, I just always like to bring this up whenever Donald Trump is brought up in discussion. I always found it very interesting because, like you said, how he was perceived almost literally the day before he announced in 2015 that he was going to run for president, how he was perceived and portrayed in both entertainment and the media. And then after he made that announcement, like, you can go back and watch this.
Yeah.
He was Satan a day later. I find that just extremely interesting.
Here's what I will say about Donald Trump as a outside perspective. To me, as a millennial, he was never someone that I ever took seriously. I always say he's never someone to be taken seriously. Like, to me, he was kind of like a kid's idea of a cartoon character's idea of a businessman. Like, he was the apprentice. Like, he was entertaining. Sure. He was very funny. And like, there's like, I rewatched when I rewatched the Super Mario Brothers movie, and Koopa's just Donald Trump, and I'm like, that's my image of him. Like, I was programmed to mock him. Like, my idea of him is the Donald Trump roast, where like, you're supposed to make fun of him for his stupid hair, and he says words funny. Like, he's not really a serious guy. I think my favorite analogy was kind of like, yeah, he's a very funny guy. Like, he's a great clown, but you don't necessarily want the clown to be president. And I'm like, that's kind of how I always saw him. Of like, I never, like, yeah, he was a cartoon character. So it's always surreal.
I didn't really have an opinion of him prior to him being in politics. I knew he was on The Apprentice, but I didn't watch The Apprentice, so I didn't really. Like, he was just a guy that was on a show that I didn't watch, and then he became the president, and he became a headache.
Yeah,
that's kind of my opinion on him. Is like, I don't do politics. Like, politics just lead to me being frustrated. So I kind of watch it from far back as I can at this point, and just my perspective on Donald Trump and his presidency and what he may or may not have done is he's just a headache that won't go away.
So I will say this and then we move on, because I know you're not a political podcast, but I will say this much. As an American, and I may or may not be familiar to your audience, but I am an American, and I'm definitely not like 100% in the Trump camp, although I make no bones about it. My life was significantly better under Donald Trump's administration than Joe Biden's, but there's a myriad of reasons why. It's not just the guy. I don't know who I'm voting for yet. But I'm definitely not voting for Joe Biden. But it'll be for somebody else. Fair. But I will say this much in defense of Donald Trump is, like I said, when he made that announcement, he was Satan from the beginning. It was amazing how quickly that switch flipped. I still maintain, my conspiracy theory is that if Donald Trump had been given a fair shake as a candidate and as a president, not only do I think he would have won a second term, but I think the vast majority of the country would have been happier and better off. There was just such a concerted effort, and this is documented. So the Democratic National Convention, like, emails were leaked. This is factual. This is proven. There are internal memos that are basically saying, and like to journalists and high-ranking people at news outlets like CNN, MSNBC, all that, they basically guided them, focus on Donald Trump because we want Hillary to go against Donald because we know she can beat him because he's a joke.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we all, myself included, laughed at the idea of him, didn't quite take him, and that's why he won. I maintained he won because he was an underdog. Nobody took him seriously, and that benefited him.
I still maintain that if it had been Bernie Sanders against Donald Trump, I think Bernie would have won that election.
For sure.
Because the Democrats literally found the one human being on planet Earth that people hate more than Donald Trump.
I've maintained. I maintain.
I mean, there's that. There's also just the fact that the world wasn't. To me, it was always, I don't believe in a two-party system, even up in Canada.
Me neither.
I don't believe in choosing. and again, I'm kind of cynical when it comes to politics, but I don't believe in the whole idea of choosing between a turd sandwich and a douchebag. So with my own politics, we have our own turd sandwich and douchebag up here as well. And I always, whether I think they'll win or not, I try to at this point go for the third option just to break out of that cycle. But in the instance of douchebag Donald Trump versus turd sandwich Hillary Clinton, the world wasn't ready for a woman president at that point either, and that was a large thing.
I disagree. I think it's because a lot of people said that. A lot of people said people dislike Hillary here. I don't know about in Canada. A lot of people said that Hillary Clinton lost because she was a woman, and I vehemently don't think that is true.
I think they were ready for that woman.
100%. They weren't ready for. They weren't ready for that woman. Because I think if it depends on the woman, obviously. But see, the problem with American politics, and I imagine it's the same in Canada too, is the morons yell the loudest.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
The smart people who are dumb enough to go into politics but smart enough to keep their head down, they're the ones that do everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But they let the buffoons have. But the buffoons are the ones that get on the news channels and say stupid shit, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like AOC, like Donald Trump, like Hillary Clinton getting on. Hillary Clinton got on national television on a Tuesday and said she was going to kill the coal industry, and then later that week was somewhere in Pennsylvania and said to the coal miners, "No, we're going to protect your jobs," as if these people don't have cable television.
I mean, I will never forgive her for Pokemon Go to the polls. That was it for me.
Like I said, turd sandwich.
when it came to Hillary Clinton, my go-to joke with her was, I never believed in the lizard people conspiracy until I saw her speak. Because when you see that woman speak, she's definitely a fucking lizard. Because she
does something that a lot of politicians do, but she does it probably the worst. And because Obama did it too, but he did it smooth. So like, if you were watching for it, you'd catch it. But it's when they're speaking and when they're about to make a point, they start talking like this.
Oh yeah, no, that drives me crazy. Joe Biden's really bad for it. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna walk out and trip down the stairs.
Except he forgets the word. He's like, and we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
that's something else.
I just noticed we had a comment from part of your Broadway World podcast, which said, "Sorry, I missed this. This was like 10 minutes ago." Which said, "I'm with Jake. Lasagna is trash."
What? Are we gonna get into a heated debate about lasagna?
I disagree.
I respectfully disagree.
I love lasagna.
I am a big lasagna boy. Love
so caveat though, I'm not much of one for Italian food, so completely that is fair. Probably why.
Completely fair.
Well, I mean, fair. I pretty much exist like exclusively on pasta and Italian food, so
yeah, no,
I don't think we're ever gonna. I don't think we're ever gonna agree on this.
Have to agree to disagree on that one.
It's okay. We can meet in the middle with pizza.
That's fair.
Oh, so everyone good. I love me a good pizza.
Everyone loves pizza.
Everyone loves pizza.
Because there's so many varieties of pizza. So there's like, you don't like vegetables, you can have cheese and meat. You don't like meat, you can have vegetarian. Like, there's something.
At the end of the day, you can just have cheese if you want that.
Exactly. But
I mean, cheese pizza is not a pizza; it's a fucking breadstick. But still, you know.
But to tie it back around to the topic, because I could do that. I'm good at this. I'm a good host.
Better than I.
Donald Trump. No. Donald Trump.
I accept the fact that I'm an agent of chaos on my podcast. When we started Toon Talk, Virus sent me a 2-page schedule down to 5-minute intervals, and I just told him. I didn't tell him this at the time, but I told him later. I said, "Yeah, my goal was to." I was going to become Professor Chaos on this podcast.
Take it off the rail.
And now he goes into an hour-long rant about how much he dislikes the first. Loved it.
You're welcome.
I was into it. I was like, dude, preach. As the preacher of bad movies that everyone loves, I'm like, preach, son.
So So the part of your Broadway World podcast has doubled down on her insanity and says, "What? It's utter garbage, lol."
I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one, Haley.
We're gonna
love
have
Okay,
to agree to disagree.
I have a theory though. So some food for thought. Lasagna looks the same as when you put it on a plate, it looks the same as when you throw it in the garbage. There's something to that.
I mean, you're not wrong, but it's just cheese and meat and sauce. It's like, do you like spaghetti? It's like spaghetti, but layered in a casserole.
See, I wouldn't know because it doesn't survive to go in the trash.
That's
so.
very fair.
That's fair.
It's usually
That's
done
fair.
in one sitting. That is very fair. But I have control. Time back. My
There's two of us this time, Justin. There's two of us. You can't succeed.
My assessment of Donald Trump. Donald Trump's worst enemy is Donald Trump. He gets in his own way the most. Like, instead of like suing this movie, he should have just like avoided the awkward sticky bits and like leaned into the fact that he's like the star of a like award-winning biopic, which this inevitably probably will. Like,
what can I say? I like to put my foot in my mouth.
Like that's his biggest
He does.
thing.
It's true.
Like people are like sick of being like, no, that's not what he like really. I have to imagine even like the most earnest supporters of his are sick of being like, well, no, you see, what he actually meant was like that must get exhausting in and of itself.
No, you are 100% wrong. They do not stop because we put up a short where I simply acknowledge the fact that when Donald Trump answers a question, he likes to take you on a journey. Because I did a bit. I did a bit when he was on Tucker Carlson before the first Republican debate, and the joke essentially was, I don't remember verbatim, but it was essentially, I was like, this is how Donald Trump answers the question about like voters in Wisconsin. It was like, well, I'll tell you what, Tucker, Wisconsin has cheese and the best people. They also have the best cheese. You know, Wisconsin, all about cheese. I've been to Wisconsin. I ate a lot of cheese, met a lot of people. It was the best cheese I'd ever had. You know what else Wisconsin has, Tucker? They have the best people.
Yeah, you know, he did
that was
answer
essentially the joke.
He did answer the question. Yeah.
But the joke was, I'm simply poking fun at that, and oh my God, the comments section, Trump answers questions all the time. You must be talking about Democrats. And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, politicians are horrible about answering direct questions. That's why I've always said something effective. There's two ways. If you want to get my vote as a politician, there's two ways you can get my vote immediately. One, you get on stage and swear like an adult.
Fair.
Appropriately. Don't just go up there and be like, fuck! But if your opponent says something really fucking stupid on a debate, just be like, okay, shit for brains, let's get back down to reality, shall something along those lines. Or somebody, and this would be entertaining as shit, if somebody's doing like a debate or an interview and the reporter asks them a question, they just say yes or no.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I would be like, I would respect that immensely. It's like, do you support this policy? No.
I love a little sass.
Okay,
in my
all right. I
won't
appreciate
lie.
the honesty.
Yeah, no.
This just in: such and such politician does not agree.
My other thing with Trump is, and it's hard to ignore, despite the fact that I may not agree with him politically at all, it's hard to ignore the fact that he's objectively funny. Like, just objectively.
Well, he's hilarious.
Like when he got on stage, he's like, you know what, Hannibal Lecter's a great guy. I rewatched that clip when I made that TikTok, I rewatched that clip so many times. I'm like, nobody told him to say that.
So that is
like, what was he thinking?
That's something that Trump does. I don't know if that was this specific case, but I would wager to guess based on how he talked, I would wager to say he's never seen the movie Silence of the Lambs.
No.
I'm sure somebody mentioned Dr. Hannibal Lecter in passing, and he was like, "Oh, he sounds kind of important. I should get on that podium and commend him for his work." He's
seen the ending because he knows he's like, oh, I can't do it. My Donald Trump impression is not as good as yours. But he's like, oh, he's saying that he's gonna take him out to dinner. Such a great guy, taking him out to dinner. And it's like,
no, that's an aid. That's an aid somewhere.
And of
just
course,
being like,
I the first place I saw this clip is on I think it's MSNBC or one of the left media channels, and they're like they're casting it as though Donald Trump thinks Hannibal Lecter is real. And I went to like 5 different web pages, and they're like framing it as though Donald Trump thinks Hannibal Lecter is real. And it's like, you watch the clip, no. He very much understands that he's a fictional character. He just really jives with the fact that he's a murderer, I guess. Like, Donald Trump's so weird. He's so weird.
Sometimes Trump will try to tell a joke and it just doesn't land, but he doubles down to try to salvage the joke. It doesn't. He's got a very unassuming sense of humor in that it's really hard to tell when he's joking and when he's serious.
Yeah.
But he absolutely uses that to his advantage. Like, I guarantee you that right there, for an entire day or two, every left-leaning news media was talking about, oh, Donald Trump's an idiot. He thinks Hannibal Lecter's real. And they weren't talking about his court cases.
No, obviously not. Like, yeah, they played the game as much as... It's why it always agitates me when it's like, I hate the media. He's like, nah, man, you need them as much as they need you, unfortunately.
Well, I said it in 2016 before the election. There's document you can go watch. Everybody who's making fun of Donald Trump and saying he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell, I'm like, you guys don't understand. He's playing you. Yeah. He's playing you like a musical instrument, and you're falling for it. Because he can say something, and you will freak out as if it's the worst thing that's ever been said.
Yeah.
When you know how you get Donald Trump to shut up? When he says something, just be like, eh.
Exactly.
That drives people like Trump crazy.
So the Part of Your World, Broadway World podcast says, that's what was so concerning to me. That's what was so concerning to me, lol. He thinks he's smart, but he isn't.
Yeah.
And she's got the laughy crying emoji.
Yeah, no, yeah. He's here's the thing. I'm absolutely not a Donald Trump supporter, but
the thing that I can. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I was just gonna say I'm also confidently, if I were American, not a Joe Biden supporter, because there's just so much too much undue confidence, and he was clearly told. My theory was with him, and this is why. This will make it clear I'm not a Joe Biden supporter. My theory, the only reason why he is running for re-election is because an aide slipped it to him that he has a sure thing. Like slipped it in his ear that this is a surefire thing. And the reason why I'm confident in that is because people ran against Trump in the primaries. They obviously all thought they knew something that they didn't. Either they thought that those court cases were gonna fuck him way worse than they did, and they didn't. If anything, they made him more popular. Because why else would you run against him in the primaries if you didn't think he was good? Why would Mike Pence run in the primaries if you?
I can answer the question for every candidate, believe it or not. So Mike Pence only ran, and again, this is opinion, but I think I'm right on this. Mike Pence only ran to protect his legacy because a lot of the Trump base, again, unjustifiably, because all he did was uphold the rules of the Constitution of the United States, that son of a bitch. But he ran solely to clean up his legacy. That was it. He knew he didn't have a chance, and he basically wanted to get on at least one debate stage and decry his association with Donald Trump and say, look, he was wrong, I was right. And then Chris Christie just has a hate boner for the guy. So that's the only reason he was there.
Okay.
Ron, oh, go ahead.
So I was just to answer the Mike Pence thing, but if anything, it tarnished his legacy because everyone was like, who is this for? The Trump supporters hate you and literally wanted to you. And none of the people in the middle like you because they think you're spineless, and the left will never vote for you. So like you have no chance. Like no people have Vivek Ramaswamy, but like you got more of a chance than Mike Pence does.
Vivek Ramaswamy ran to be vice president.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Or at least actually, I do think this. I think Vivek Ramaswamy would be a really good chief of staff in a presidential administration. Because, don't give him absolute power, but if you say, "Hey, here's shit we want to get done this year," I think he can get it done.
Yeah, yeah, he's a business guy. He's motivated. I can see it.
Well, and plus he'll do whatever Trump tells him. So
he was I don't know, man.
Vivek, I need you to pee in this cup for me.
The thing about Vivek.
Okay.
The thing about Vivek, and I will swerve this back into being a movie podcast, but I have to make fun of Vivek Ramaswamy because I think he's a smug ass.
He is.
The clip of Ann Coulter saying a racism to his face on his own podcast, just absolutely debasing him on his own podcast. might be the funniest thing I've ever seen on the internet. And the fact that he doubled down and defended her, even funnier. Like, just like, dude, man, show like an ounce of a spine. Get like indignant at least, like a little bit of indignant. Be like, Anne, not cool, man. Like, don't be like, no, she.
Yeah.
Like,
to me, it seems like Vivek Ramaswamy would be much more effective as just a person if he showcased a little backbone. Because like Chris Christie got a good zinger on him on the debate stage, and I would have just been like, if you were a real asshole, you just look over at Chris and be like, "Oh, did you run out of donuts?"
Yeah.
Instead of being like, it's like, no, we're just gonna have fun tonight. It's like, dude, fucking throw it back at him.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, it's just kind of like she just kind of demonstrates he's playing a game with people who don't want to play with him, but he's still really trying, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for Vivek.
I called him out for being a little overly diplomatic to the point of being, I'm not going to say he lied because it's not a lie, but so he really hammered in religion as part of his political persona. And I mean, there are absolutely Christians that hail from India that still live in India. So when he was talking about God all the time, I just assumed, I was like, oh, his parents must have been Christians in India, because I believe they both moved here, but I know at least one of his parents immigrated. I think they both did, but because I know he was born here. But anyway, so I just assumed they were Christians that originally hailed from India. Like, maybe they moved from.
It happens. They
any
were
of the various Catholic,
English colonized.
But anyway, but then somebody somewhere talked about how he was Hindu, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm no expert, but my understanding of Hinduism is not. It's not super duper compatible with, like, when you get into the really nitty gritty dogma of it all, because he's espousing very, very Christian ideas, and he's kind of uncomfortable. And that's when I started saying, I was like, oh, the evangelical right is never going to vote for him.
No,
ever. If he's not a Christian,
he's
they are
definitely
not. But he's trying
to play to them.
He's trying to play to them, and I'm just like, bro, you're Hindu. It's fine. Like, you're not gonna get these people.
No,
you're not.
You're not.
So don't even try.
And you don't need to get them to win anyway. You need to get that's the thing. Like, the thing that frustrates me about these, like, really I want to be Trump guys is you're never gonna win over Trump's base ever, and you're not gonna win over the people in the middle because they generally don't like Trump anyway. It doesn't take much to tip them in the other direction, and you're certainly not gonna win any Democrats. You need to win the people who are kind of iffy. And you're not doing that by playing to Trump's base. Like, you're just not. No. You can with minimal effort play to their base, but if you directly play to their base, you don't win. And that's why these people don't win.
Well, and this is why I don't like the primary system in the United States, at least the way it is now, because it incentivizes you to be disingenuous as a politician. Because, like, if you're running in the Republican primary and 2023, you have to cater to the Trump base because they're the strongest element of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But you're also running against Donald Trump. So you have to play to them just to get out of the primary. And then once you're out of the primary, then you have to circle back. Because Joe Biden did the same thing. Joe Biden ran during the primary as the moderate voice of reason. And then once he got elected, he started catering to the radical left.
Yeah.
Every single year, more and more and more. And it's just like, so it forces people to be liars, and that's kind of why I don't like the system. It's inherent in the system, and that's why primaries suck.
Yeah. I mean, your guys' anyway, to wrap it and bring it up full circle. Yeah, your guys' politics are messy, and I will absolutely still do that political episode of your podcast you invited me on, where you can hear about all of my opinions on those. But with that, have you seen Knives Out, Jake?
I have not. I had zero interest in watching it.
Now, okay. So here's my thing. That's based off the back of The Last Jedi, I'm guessing, right?
No, it has everything to do with the trailer.
Really? Because here's my pitch to you. It's a surprisingly, and he watched it for the show, but it's a surprisingly good whodunit. Like, especially the first one. And if you like Chris Evans, and you really remember him from, like, the 90s as being a smug ass, instead of being Captain America, he's full back as, like, a absolute smug ass, and it's a lot of fun. And
a lot of people forget that Chris Evans was the guy I think his name was Jake in the movie from Not Another Teen Movie.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Chris Evans. Like, I think of that. I think of the human. I would like when they cast him
Johnny
as,
Storm.
Yeah, I was like, he's Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm is going to be Captain America. I don't see it. I absolutely do not see it.
I do love the bit in the movie where he poses next to the picture of him posing next to his picture.
Yeah, it's great.
It does the infinite.
Super fun. But yeah, it's really good. The mysteries. Daniel Craig as Benoit. He's like super fun. But they're making a third one. Jordan hasn't seen the second one. They're making a third one. It's going to be called Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. And I love those movies, and I would watch 100 of them. And I would just watch Daniel Craig with his Kentucky accent solving just like endless mysteries. I don't know why. He's just super entertaining. He's a lot like, if you're familiar with Murder on the Orient Express. Yeah, Benoit, I think the character's name is. The character that's played by Kenneth Branagh in the newer versions. He's basically like a character like that. Just really colorful and eccentric. Okay, now my next question, Jake. Have you seen Super Size Me?
Yes,
So
I did watch that.
You know who Morgan Spurlock is.
Yep.
He apparently died. He passed away.
Complications from cancer, from what I understand.
From cancer. And like, I've been kind of like tossing on a TikTok to be like, I sympathize. It's sad. That sucks. But my God, that Super Size Me documentary sure was bullshit. Like, a lot of the facts.
It so was, dude. It was. That was a rough watch. And I did a deep dive into it and saw how problematic it was just as a concept. His study, because I mean, there was not study. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure that if you change your diet over to eat solely just anything, like any sort of food or any place, it's going to affect your health in some way, shape, or form.
Sure,
But also, he stopped exercising.
Absolutely.
This is a guy who exercised regularly and then just stopped and then started only eating McDonald's fast food. And frankly, as an American, I took it as an insult that part of his study showcased that, let me rephrase, the part of his study that I had the biggest problem with, or the part of his stunt rather, was every time he was asked if he wanted to supersize the meal, he had to say yes. That's bullshit. You don't have to do that. Even when supersize was a thing. Yeah. I worked at McDonald's. I worked in McDonald's in Indiana, where the only thing that you can consistently do in any town in Indiana is eat fast food. Like, we're a very food-centric state, right?
I live in a small town, get it.
Yeah. So I worked at McDonald's for 2 years. And Super Size Me, it was before that documentary, which for those who don't know is the reason McDonald's got rid of the Super Size.
Yeah.
But it was still then pretty rare.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I mean, it happened, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a common occurrence.
Yeah.
So for him to suggest that McDonald's is bad because in his study, if he was asked if he wanted to supersize, he had to say yes. That's pretty disingenuous. But he wasn't trying to figure out the health effects of eating a diet of McDonald's. He was trying to make McDonald's look bad.
Yeah.
He was pushing it to the limit.
The documentary, or the thing that made me go, oh yeah, Super Size Me is total bullshit, was actually a really great documentary called Fathead, where it was a gentleman he went through and he did a similar study to what Morgan Spurlock did. And he found that all of the math that Morgan Spurlock had done in Super Size Me, there was no way. There's no way he was hitting those kind of numbers. And he found that like if you ate McDonald's like consistently, so long as you ate it like moderately and like not crazy, it didn't really adversely affect your health really all that crazy much. And it was super interesting. And yeah, from that point on, anytime I see someone like when I saw this news of him passing away, kind of broke, I saw people being like, oh, it made me stop eating McDonald's and it changed my entire, that makes me cringe, because I saw that documentary and it like changed, it kind of blew my mind, because when I was a teenager, very much, like they used to show that documentary in my health class, like that's how, I
mean, the other thing is I don't think our super size was ever as big as America's. I'm pretty sure our super size I'm pretty sure our supersize was basically just like their large.
Pretty much, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
super bad.
That's probably true. But it is interesting and worth noting that the trying to think. No, I'm wrong. The medium. There was a very, very brief period where the medium size got slightly smaller, but they reversed that pretty quickly.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, I'm sure because everybody was like, "There's not many fries in this motherfucker."
I am.
Part of your Broadway World podcast says, I just remember we used to watch Super Size Me in health class.
See?
It just didn't make me feel good at all. It was just weird.
See?
Oh, I was out of school when that came out, so yeah, that makes sense. I think it came out the year after I graduated, so that would explain. That's really no teacher should have shown that to students.
I don't remember my teachers ever showing me that, so that's maybe I don't know. That's weird
because it's just bad science.
I don't generally like revealing where I work on the internet, but for the sake of privacy, I'll say that I know a person who currently works at McDonald's. And do you find as a former McDonald's employee that when people are like, my ice cream machine is always broken, hardy har har, as if they like know why it's always broken? Like, that makes me cringe every single time, because I'm like, you people don't know what this nightmare machine is. Like, you don't understand when you come in at your 4 a.m. wanting ice cream, idiot. Like, I hate videos like that.
When you actually hear some of the background of it, because I also know a person that has or does work at McDonald's. When you actually hear some of the background stuff about it, it for sure sounds like a scam. Like, this machine is designed to not function properly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just as a real quick aside, there's a really great YouTube video where he actually goes through and explains how the machine works, and it's actually intentionally designed to break, so that you have to call a mechanic that you have to contractually use with the company
like
that
a
makes the
specific
machine.
company. Yeah.
Otherwise, you break your lease, and they have take away the machine, and it's a huge source of income in the summer. Like, it's a huge, like, almost like Ponzi scheme style. It's really very interesting video. I can't remember.
Well, the whole McDonald's franchise system is like, it's not a Ponzi scheme, but it's kind of a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, we talked about the founder.
We talked about the founder. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you guys are well aware.
If you ever worked at McDonald's, you need to watch The Founder, because it's mind blowing.
Oh, I love. Well, fun fact: when I worked there, in the break room, they had a computer that had training tools on it too, but it also had a documentary of Ray Kroc, the original founder, but the founder of like the corporate McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I loved watching, because I love documentaries. But then I watched the founder, and I was just like, well, they conveniently left that part out.
What's really funny is I think right around I was at the person was at the core store for training, and they may have mentioned. They had brought up. They were talking about the founder, about Ray Kroc, and I'm like, oh, and the McDonald's brothers. And they changed the subject so fucking fast, like so. Oh yeah, right. And every time I bring up the founder, it's like no, don't talk about that movie. Don't talk about that movie at work. Like, they're so sensitive to it.
You must have worked at a corporate store, and not a lot of people know this. The vast majority of McDonald's locations are actually franchises. So, for example, I worked at a McDonald's for 2 years. I never once worked for the McDonald's Corporation. I worked for Double Decker Incorporated, which was a franchisee of McDonald's. So, and I remember during COVID, everybody was like bitching, moaning, and complaining about all these businesses getting loans. And I'm like, well, you guys do understand that the vast majority of specifically fast food restaurants, but restaurants, even certain retail stores, they're franchises. They are not corporate stores. And a lot of people don't understand that. So it's like, they're not getting billions of dollars. This is just like somebody effectively running a small business with corporate imaging and marketing, which you pay for as a franchisee, by the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to buy all of that.
This is what this one we'll do, because we no longer work for them. But we used to work at a local fast food joint called Triple O's, White Spot Triple O's. And we didn't work for Triple O's. We worked for a woman named Teresa. and she owned the business. So we worked for like Terex Ventures or whatever. So, but it's like people don't understand that.
Same idea.
So like I've discovered over the years, people just don't Yeah, you're right. People just don't understand how franchising works, because like when you say I don't technically work for Tim Hortons. I work for I can't remember what the company was that owned the Tim Hortons that I worked for.
Yeah, but you're wearing the Tim Hortons uniform with all the Tim Hortons logo, so you work for Tim Hortons, really.
That's not that Tim Hortons doesn't appear on my paycheck.
That is why that's why you'll see it's not just the staff, but I mean the staff is the root of it, but it's not McDonald's hiring the staff in every case. But like the best McDonald's I've ever been to is somewhere in Greenwood, Indiana, and it is by far the best McDonald's I've ever been to. Everything was always top notch, and I guarantee you they had to have paid their people extremely well, because everybody was always like, from every age group, was always smiling. The food was always immaculate. Like the place was always clean.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
the thing that was
I was like, this has to be a franchise, because there's no way a corporate store is run this way.
Absolutely. And the thing that was eerie about the founder, and I think I said this in our episode, but was how like everything, as a person who works at McDonald's in the modern age, it was eerie how much of what the McDonald's brothers were concerned about with franchising happens. Like, it was just like, man, they saw into the future, and everything.
They weren't that concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, in the movie, but I mean, in real life, no, not so much. But in the movie,
the movie does drum up. There wasn't that much animosity in real life. They drum up the drama for the movie, but Ray Kroc did, in fact, open a McDonald's across the street.
He did, that's
so that is. That was real.
I thought that was so funny. I was like, that's hilarious.
Well, it was the end of the world as they knew it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No kidding, eh?
So
to bring it all back around.
Moving right along. How do you feel about Beetlejuice, Jake?
The first one?
Yeah, like they're making a Beetlejuice. Are you excited for that second Beetlejuice?
Beetlejuice.
Not really, because I saw the first one like ages ago when I was young. I was never a big Beetlejuice fan, although I do love the fact that they titled the sequel Beetlejuice. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, we made the joke that they should call the third one, because this should obviously be a trilogy, because everything's a trilogy now. They should call it Beetlejuice, Beetle, and then it should just cut off.
And then have it cut off. Yeah. That's if I was making the third one, that's what I would do, because I think that's clever.
Because I think that's clever. I think that's funny. I saw the trailer for the second one, and I was like, oh, all right, I guess okay. This feels like about 10 years too late, but cool. Yeah, I guess. All right.
Well, Michael Keaton let everybody know that he could still act. So
right. It was like, oh yeah, he's still worth spending money on. Apparently, Margot Robbie is making a Sims movie. I think me and Jordan talked about this once. And,
I think so, yeah.
And it's going to Amazon, apparently. I don't know.
Wait, let me guess. There's a girl in The Sims who starts having thoughts about death, and then she travels to the real world and discovers what it's like to be a real woman. And at the end, she gets a vagina.
I mean, here's the thing.
They made that movie.
It's certainly about two characters who are hollow and develop sentience and self-awareness. I mean, that's definitely.
If I was gonna make it, I would make it a horror movie where it's about like a couple living in a house and they're being controlled by by this outside force, and like they're in the pool and their ladder disappears, or like all the things that you used to do in The Sims when you were sick and twisted and controlling your sim, and like that's what's being done to them, and it's like them trying to figure out the mystery of it all.
That actually, you know what? I know you said that as a joke and cynically. That actually does kind of sound interesting. I'm kind of into that. But it has to be like really truly upsetting though. Like it can't be done in a jokey way. It has to be like.
So you're saying it has, and the movie can end with everything going dark because the person just stops playing The Sims.
I mean, no,
and it can be a dystopian.
Well, certainly one of the characters, two deaths have to happen. One of the characters has to drown in the pool when the ladder disappears, and the other one has to die when their bladder explodes, because you block off access to the bathrooms, because everyone does that at least once.
See, what I want is I want the one person to die in the pool because the ladder is gone, and then Death shows up, and the other person becomes friends with Death, and then like Death reluctantly takes them at the end of the movie.
That would be good. That would be pretty good. But no, I have no idea what that movie's going to be, but it going to Amazon tells me that nobody's confident in it. That's for sure.
I don't know. They were very confident in Rings of Power. I almost said Wings of Power. I just saw. So apparently, I don't know if you guys are into wrestling, but Ric Flair is apparently putting his name on everything, and I guess because he's got an energy drink and he's doing some CBD thing, but now apparently he makes wings, or he has his name on wings. And there's a promotional video where it's just him opening a box of wings going, because they're Woo Wings, and he just goes, Wings!
See, it's funny you bring up Ric Flair, because I saw, this would be so mean, I saw something that popped up about Ric Flair, how he had come back for something that you're talking about, and the first thing I went was, wait, didn't he die? I swear I saw at the end of one of those Dark Side of the Wrestling episodes that he died. And it was sad. I remember that.
To be fair, he may have died on the table at least once, but they brought him back.
It made me do like, am I Mandela affecting myself here? I swear to God, he died. But that's happened to me a few times.
I want to say that there was one day where there were actual like news stories about Ric Flair being dead, but then he was still alive. So
that's amazing. Something. I mean, I'm not a huge professional wrestling fan.
Stop telling everyone I'm dead.
Stop telling everyone I'm dead. I do know who Ric Flair is. He is pretty great. I mean, look, my thing with professional wrestling is this. As a quick aside, for me, it's sort of like Santa Claus, in the sense that a kid told me that professional wrestling wasn't real at the wrong time in my life, and I went, it's not real. And then when you're like 10, it ruins it for you. And then I rediscovered it. Me and Jordan went to watch which one was it? WrestleMania 30. The one where the Brock Lesnar ended the streak.
Okay, yeah, I think that was WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, and we kind of came to the conclusion that wrestling exists in its own universe. Like you have to you have to pretend. You have to kind of pretend that you have to exist within the narrative.
You have to let yourself. Yeah, you have to let yourself get absorbed in the story of it all. And it's like, as an adult, obviously I know there's a narrative, and certain choices are going to be fixed in a certain extent, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the athleticism, the skill, and all the work that goes into it. It's like going and watching a good stage play, where it's like, yeah, obviously I know the stage play isn't real, but all the work that goes into the stage play, that's a hell of a lot of work, and I definitely appreciate it.
And that's the way to look at it, because the best way I've heard pro wrestling described is modern theater in the round.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I would agree with that 100%.
And like, yeah, I guess it's like once the idea of kayfabe is destroyed for you, it kind of, and I think it's when you're a kid, maybe it kind of damages you a bit.
But, and I'm going to channel my inner Jim Cornette here. It's like, the wrestling business will never go back to what it was, but there are still, because people used to get legitimately stabbed and hurt and shot at.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But it'll never go back to that. However, there are people that can still play with those lines, like CM Punk is somebody who does that all the time, because he tells you, like, the way CM Punk structures promo, and Cody Rhodes does this as well, the way they structure promos, but Punk is probably the best at it, is he'll tell you enough stuff that you know is real, and then when he blurs the lines, you're not sure if he's working you or if he's telling you the truth.
Sorry.
So pro wrestling used to operate in the sense of absolute thinking it was real, and now the best you can do, but you can still do it really well, is blurring the lines enough to wonder, it's like, is that real or is that fake? Because I can't really tell, and that's when it's the best.
My thing with Cody Rhodes, my rapid fire Cody Rhodes opinion, I was with Cody Rhodes until he did the thing with The Rock, and then I was like, oh, this is so corny. Every time The Rock tried to be a heel, I'm like, dude, I'm not feeling this from you right now, man.
You must not have stuck with it, because there was actually a moment that I praised, because at first I was like, But there's and so like backstage brawls are the fakest thing in pro wrestling because it's like it's fake as shit. But The Rock and Cody did one, and they do a bit it was so funny to me that it was so good because the bit was because they cut the show, but then they released a video on social media where the camera guy is telling Rock, he's like, okay, Rock, we're off the air. And he turns to the camera and goes, I don't give a fuck if we're off air or not. And he continues beating Cody down. And it's one of those things that's like, listen, we know it's fake, but they did it in such a way that if you frame it right in your mind where it's like, well, if this was real, this is probably what it would look like.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean... Yeah, the thing ultimately with professional wrestling with me is the thing that will forever make me appreciate the art of it is, and I will always, it'll be my go-to moment for defending WWE as an art form till the day I die, is when Undertaker threw Mick Foley off the top of that cage. That moment is incredible. That moment, when people say wrestling is fake, I'm like, that shit ain't fake.
No.
That shit ain't fake.
You cannot fake falling. How tall was Hell in a Cell?
I can't remember. I think I want it 25 feet feels too tall.
Well, because they have 20-foot ladders, and Hell in a Cell is taller than that.
Yeah.
So let's call it 30 feet.
Yeah.
25 feet. Let's call it 25 feet. You cannot fake falling off of 25 feet without a harness. Like
right. You can't fake that. And the fact that he got up, climbed back up, and then fell through the cage. It is one of the most incredible pieces of film I have ever seen. Yeah. It's incredible. I'm like, if you don't love professional wrestling, just watch that. It's incredible.
Well, see, and what's funny though, there are moments in pro wrestling. Alone. Yeah. Well, there are moments in pro wrestling today that I watch, and I'm still like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was really cool, but I'm also just like, because I watched it was a random women's match in New Japan, and the only thing I can think of, the one of the girls, I can't even remember her name, this is bad, she does a flying meteora from the top rope onto the floor. And for those of you who don't know, a meteora is essentially jumping off of something and diving with your knees first onto another person.
Ew.
And I watched her do this, and she was okay, but I just thought, I was like, oh my God, because Zelina Vega is somebody in WWE, has an amazing meteor, but every time she does it, I'm just like, oh, stop. Please stop doing that. Because it only takes one time for you to fuck up your knee forever. Yeah. And I watched this girl do a flying, which the ring post is about 4 feet from the ring, and the ring is about 4 feet. So basically, approximately an 8-foot jump to the floor, knees first. And I know you wear knee pads, but still, it's just like, I'm like, stop. I was like, you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this. It's not worth it. Like, maybe for a WrestleMania, maybe, but even then, I'm just like, I hate watching these guys kill themselves, guys and girls, especially on the indies, because it's like, some of these people may not even be getting paid, and you don't have to. There are so many matches that were great and are remembered, and they didn't even go outside the ring. Like, you don't have to do this shit. Jim Cornette converted me on this one, because I used to be like a massive ECW fan. I still love ECW, but even then, like, I go back and watch some of the old matches, and I'm just like, you guys didn't have to do that.
Yeah, I am.
Like, Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko were getting just as many cheers as Ian and Axl Rotten literally dipping their hands into broken glass and fucking killing each other.
I only really learned about the ECW from watching Dark Side of the Ring, and man, there's a lot of clips from those episodes where I'm like, this guy just seems like he just wants to do this to hurt people, and like, hey man, it's maybe good that he has this outlet and he's not actually hurting people, but this is not okay.
You're talking about New Jack.
Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah, like, he just seems insane. Like, he just seems like he's a not okay dude.
And I'm not trying to. Well, I kind of am, because it's the truth. New Jack is on record saying there were certain times, like the mass transit incident, like, he was doing that to hurt people.
Yeah, well,
and I can't remember I can't remember when he threw off. I can't remember who he threw off the scaffold, but he was trying to kill him. He's on record saying he was trying to kill him. He said, if I'd thrown that son of a bitch a little bit further, I'd have killed him. Because like I said, he was aiming for the ring post.
In the Dark Side of the Ring episode, it implies that, I believe it implies that he wanted to kill. Yeah, I recall that. There's no
implication. He's on record saying it multiple times.
But I will say, in terms of memorable moments for the WWE, ironically, look, man, I used to shit on Logan Paul with the best of them.
Right?
But like, my God,
man.
I think I sent Jordan a clip of the double air collision because I'm like, dude, like, you don't have to be a professional wrestling fan to be like, that's impressive shit. Like, there's people who want to be cynical so bad because he's Logan Paul, and then you get people who are like actual wrestling fans who are like, no, man, he's doing impressive shit. Like, he honestly is.
Yeah. You can see this on down the middle. When Logan Paul's first introduced, my initial reaction was, you gotta be fuck. Because this is right on the heels of Bad Bunny being in the ring, too. And I was just like, fuck. Which, to be fair, Bad Bunny exceeded my expectations, too. But he was helped. Logan Paul came to play. Like, he's not being carried. Freak athlete.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And everyone's accusing him of being carried, but he's not.
No.
He's not being. No. And it's funny you say he's a freak athlete. Because the one thing I will not tolerate from him is him pretending like he beat Floyd Mayweather. Because did you?
Oh, come on! No! Please. Yes, I watched that fight. There's no way in hell.
My favorite moment in that fight. Okay, there's two of my favorite moments in that fight are when Floyd Mayweather is like realizes, you see him realize in real time, oh shit, he's not a very good fighter. I could actually hurt him. I should probably take it easy. And number two, when he knocks Logan Paul clean unconscious, Logan Paul collapses on his shoulder and then wakes up and realizes he's in a fight. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. It's so precious.
Which kudos to Floyd Mayweather. So yeah, and I got a lot more respect for Logan in the wrestling ring, and I have to preface with this: Logan Paul and Jake Paul are great boxers for the level that they are at.
Oh, for sure. He's an average boxer. That guy said it very correctly.
But, and I say this all the time, if they were great boxers, they would be competing in boxing organizations.
For sure.
And my solemn hope, I hope Mike Tyson doesn't just need money. Because that seems like what this is. Because I want Mike Tyson to go out there and knock him the fuck out in round one. That's what I want. I don't think that's what's going to happen, though.
No, it's gonna go the distance, and it's gonna end in a draw because no one wins in that fight. I made a TikTok about this. This is an opinion I stand on. Nobody is winning. Okay, he knocks out Mike Tyson, so he knocks out a guy 30 years his senior who hasn't boxed, and the last time he boxed, he was fucking winded as shit. Like, what? Okay, he beat an old man. He loses. He lost to an old man. Like Mike Tyson.
Well, see, that's where I partially disagree with you because yes, it's an old man, but it's also Mike Tyson.
I don't know, man. There's that footage of him walking around with a cane.
When you're in the training footage, you don't need that cane anymore.
I don't
those
know.
Pads up. I will say this much though: what I hope, my deepest desire is that that Mike Tyson is going along with all this, and the plan is going to be, we'll have a really good looking exhibition. We'll go the distance, like that's the plan. And I hope Mike Tyson, when he gets in there, says fuck the plan and just lays him out.
I'm hoping. I mean, he's promised that
and bites his ear off.
That's the Mike Tyson that we want because that's the he wanted to murder people. Mike Tyson. That's the guy. That's the guy who retired because he was like, I can't fight because I don't want to kill nobody no more. So he says that guy's back. He claims that guy's back, but I don't think he is.
Well, it's a great promo, but I don't think he is.
I honestly don't think he is. Yeah.
I hope he is. I hope that Mike Tyson's back because I want Logan Paul to be missing an ear. Not Logan Paul, sorry. I want Jake Paul to be. I don't want Jake Paul to be missing an ear, but I want him. I want him. But see, here's the thing. Even if Jake Paul gets knocked out in the first round, he can still be like,
I lost to Mike Tyson. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I lost to Mike Tyson. It's like, there's no shame in that. I wouldn't last 2 seconds with Mike Tyson unless he let me.
I mean, he managed to make beating Anderson Silva feel shameful. So, look, just for poor Jordan, are you up to date? Or do you keep in tune with your influencer boxing, Jake? a little bit?
Oh no,
No,
not even close.
Because I wanted to take it a moment to bash KSI because he's a terrible boxer.
Oh, I'm all for bashing KSI.
Oh, beautiful.
Fucking waste of space.
KSI needs to learn there's a such thing as an embarrassing victory. That fight when he fought Pinata is the most embarrassing fight I have ever seen in my life. He should feel ashamed of the fact that he won that fight. Like he's a paper champion in a league he created, and he's a smug prick, and it drives me crazy. I don't like Jake Paul, but at least I respect Jake Paul. There, that was my piece. That was my piece on KSI.
Well, I'm still pulling for politician boxing. I think this is my and I'm calling on Congress for this. Do you want to solve the national debt crisis in the United States? I will tell you how. You charge $100 for politician pay-per-view boxing, you will make trillions. Headline of night one is AOC versus Marjorie Taylor Greene. Obviously, everything's consensual. Like, you can't make them fight each other. But it's like, if you guys... my whole thing is, like, as a fight promoter on my brain, it's like, okay, you guys are yelling at each other, obviously at each other, so are you angry enough to fight?
I think they would. That's one where I'm like
some of them would.
Like
I think some of them would for sure.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Although I think Marjorie Taylor Greene would fuck AOC up.
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is trailer park crazy, so she obviously would. Like
exactly, she'll just.
Yeah, she's trailer park crazy. She would fuck AOC up. Like there's no question. I
would just be hoping that AOC would give into the peer pressure because obviously she wouldn't want to, but I mean, she sure can talk tough. It's always, oh, baby girl, no. It's like, yeah, because you know she's not going to reach over and slap you.
See, I think she would if you like went to her with the correct pitch and you were like, look, AOC, it's for charity. You could get sponsors. We could turn to...
If you pay her directly, maybe. I don't think... See, here's the thing about AOC.
I don't know. Maybe to be performative, she might do it.
Well, no, but here's my thing about AOC and people of her sort of group, the people on the left, the professional activists. Given the opportunity to actually help, if it's at their expense, most of these people wouldn't lift a fucking finger.
So here's my counterpoint to that, right? And you're an American, you're an outsider, but I'm sure you probably are familiar. You're probably familiar with this next sentence, and Jordan would probably agree. Jordan, would most Canadians, or certainly half of Canadians, say that Justin Trudeau is an incredibly performative prime minister?
I mean, he's a prime minister, that's for sure. He's
performative.
He technically does the job, I suppose.
Performative means, Jordan, in case you don't know what performative means, he just sort of says he's going to do stuff and makes a big deal about doing stuff without actually doing anything, like substantial.
I mean, you've kind of just described most politicians in my eyes.
I was going to say, yes. You just described a politician. So.
I more wants to make a big scene rather than get anything done, I guess. If that
he blusters.
Bluster.
Well, but yeah. So I guess like this is, and I'm not meaning to exclude everybody, but this statement is referring to like the AOCs, the Greta Thunbergs, the Justin Trudeau, the professional activists who call for all this change. But when you really get down to it, all these people have ever done is. I mean, at least Greta Thunberg was loud about it, but even then, she didn't really... They don't offer real solutions. They just say, this is bad, this needs to change. Okay, well, what do you propose? Well, it just needs to stop. It's like, okay, well, that's not a real solution. Well, we need to spend all this money to do what exactly? Like, but then to prove my point, I can never remember this kid's name, and I am ashamed of it. The kid that invented the thing that's got in the Pacific right now, as we speak, picking up garbage out of the Pacific Ocean. And I'm ashamed that I can never remember this kid's name.
Yeah,
that's the guy. That's the guy you give money to.
I can't think of his name either, but I do know who you're talking about.
I have no idea who that is. And I know who Marjorie. Yet I'm not American. I know who Marjorie Taylor Greene is. So well,
that's because Marjorie Taylor Greene is in another group that I have equal disdain for, along with people like Matt Gaetz, who are just like the people that. Well, first of all, Matt Gaetz is in it for his own personal gain, right? And Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, like AOC, has just fallen in love with the fame, and now they want to be on TV. But they're just as bad if not worse, because they're not even offering solutions. They're just trying to tear shit down.
Yeah.
For some strange reason. Like the whole idea of compromise has completely escaped politics in the United States, and it's showing.
Yeah.
And that's how we've gotten to this point. Because it's like, I get it. There are hills to die on, for sure.
Yeah.
But not every hill is a hill to die on. So it's like...
Exactly.
It's like, come on, guys. I was saying for years, it's like, at some point, when they were spending all this money on COVID relief, everybody, which I loved how everybody was like, all right, I'm going to get some money. And it's like, I thought you guys were against government spending. Well, yeah, but I'm getting it. I'm like, okay. And I'll be frank, the only reason I took mine was because there was no point. First of all, there was no way to opt out because they were sending me the check. And even if I could opt out, I'm going to pay for it anyway in taxes, so I might as well get my money now, right? There was no way to opt out. If there had been a way to opt out and say, you know what, instead I'll just take it off my taxes, I would have done that because I didn't need the money right then and there.
Yeah.
I know some people did, but I wasn't one of those people. But my point is, it's like, it's funny how there are hills to die on, but not every hill is a hill to die on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I was saying, at some point, there's going to be a massive tax increase, or there's going to be inflation. And guess what happened? We had inflation and a tax increase.
To bring it back to your point, though, Justin, is that's ultimately where my frustration comes in with politics. Is it's just a lot of people, left, right, whichever side you're on, a lot of people talking but not actually doing anything. Like, and that's where, like, if I was in America, even if there's no good options, I would probably tend to vote independent, simply because the other two options just don't do anything for me.
Although there's so my cynical side is saying, and not, I mean, I do like a lot of things about RFK Jr., but no one is perfect. There are issues, but I like the fact there may be a chance. Now, my cynical side is saying, no, they're going to find a way to keep him out. But apparently he qualifies for the debate standards that CNN put up.
Oh, really?
So,
I would love to see that.
One of two things will happen, and I think the latter. Well, no, so that's kind of what I want, because I'm confident in a three-way debate between Trump, RFK Jr., and Biden. RFK will eviscerate the other two.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But what I think this is going to show is just the inherent bias that I know exists. Like, they're going to do everything they can to keep RFK Jr. off that stage. And it's not beneath them to just say, well, no, for reasons.
Yeah.
And then he's going to say, well, why? I meet the... And then he's probably going to sue, but it'll be too late. Just like when Gary Johnson was trying to get on the stage. Ever since Ross Perot, they're not going to let an independent candidate get on the same stage as the Democrat and Republican candidates. And they should. They should, because so many Americans don't even know that there are other political parties other than the Democrats. Like, they don't even know they exist, much less view them as options. They just don't know.
The ones that frustrate me are people who, and we had a person we knew who used to constantly get frustrated with people who are like this as well. People who don't vote drive me crazy. People who are like, I'm just not going to vote then. And it's like, oh, if all the people who said I'm not going to vote voted independent, you might actually make an independent candidate a viable candidate instead of just not participating.
In the United States, you would, because roughly, I mean, it varies, obviously, but it's usually roughly about 35% of the electorate actually show up to vote.
Like, as frustrating, as funny as Nikki Haley losing to none of the above is, that's very frustrating, because it's like, come on, guys, commit to a candidate. Like you won't change anything if you pick nobody. Like, that thing's going to swing in any direction if you pick nobody.
The thing that irritates me...
To be fair, the Iowa caucuses are really fucking weird.
The thing that irritates me is when people are like, oh, I'm not going to vote for anyone, and I'm like, oh, that's okay, that's cool, but you then, to me anyways, sacrifice your right to bitch about anything that's going on politics wise.
I agree.
I voted in a lot of shitty elections for that reason.
If you have not exercised your right to choose, then you don't get to complain about the fact that someone you like didn't like was chosen.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Yeah.
It's basic to me.
But to bring it back to my original point about AOC doing a boxing, our performative prime minister did a boxing match So he was perfectly
Yeah, I
willing to
heard
get punched in
about
the
that.
face for money. So there's a
Come
chance.
on,
There's
come
a chance.
on. That wasn't a real fight. You know it.
I have no idea. I didn't
That was
watch
professional
it.
wrestling.
I didn't bother watching it because I'm like, there's no way. But I thought it was fun. It reminded me of, and I forgot to bring this up when we did our Uva. Are you familiar with Uva Bowl? I know. I invoked his name on. No, you're not.
Never mind. Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
the
I
infamous
remember.
video game director guy. He used to box his critics. And when I was making my video, I intended to put in footage of him boxing his critics because there's so much footage of it. And I'm just like, yeah, I wanted to see if I could. It just reminded me of that time that Justin Trudeau boxed.
I'm still waiting for Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg.
I mean, it's funny. Like I was like, my immediate was like, Elon Musk, he's bigger, but Mark Zuckerberg is squirrely.
Elon Musk would fuck him up.
Yeah, but I mean, have you seen his training?
Yeah.
He's squirrely, and he's not quite there. I feel like he's like crazy, so I think he's bringing like street crazy to the fight.
I mean, plus Mark Zuckerberg's a robot, so they would just put the fighting programming into him, and he'd be a master.
Like the Matrix, yeah. Well, but my favorite response, because Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan, and Joe's like, "You gonna train for that?" He's like, "I don't need to." He was like, "Cause I'll just do the." He's like, "I'll just do the walrus." Yeah, but here's the thing: there's actually something to that. Like, I know Mark Zuckerberg does jujitsu, but there's a reason there are weight classes in competitive jiu-jitsu and MMA because there is a line. However, I don't think Elon is that stupid, and he's got an open invite to train with Joe Rogan and a bunch of other Eddie Bravo and a bunch of other people that will turn Elon Musk into a fighting machine, and he will kill Mark Zuckerberg.
I'll watch it. I'd
watch the shit out of it.
I'm all the way in on the influence of boxing.
We just got to throw Jeffrey Bezos in there, and we can have a 3-way cage fight.
I'm down with it. But the politician wrestling. I mean, I'm not wrestling. The politician, like, think about this. They can do like a one championship meets WWE because you could have tag team bouts, no holds barred bouts. You could have like traditional MMA, or if they just want to box, they can box. Like they can pick their poison. So if Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC want to just have like a slap fight, like the competitive like face slapping fights, I'd watch that.
See, for me, what I want is them to have the Donald Trump versus Joe Biden main event, and I want there to be months and months and months of promotion and just months of build up, and then just they immediately walk out and they both simultaneously have a heart attack and die, and we restart the whole thing over again.
But you just do a 10 count, and there's no But could you imagine if they did that, and then all these politicians just started cutting like pro wrestling promos?
That would be amazing.
Be like, and Joe, on May 15th at the Washington D.C. Politislam, I'm going to embarrass you in front of the entire world more than you already have yourself. You can't talk now, but when I'm done with you, you won't even be able to move your mouth. And then Joe will just be in there, and he'll just be like, "And don't! I'm gonna punch you harder than that other guy I punched in high school when I saw two guys kissing, and he said, 'Hey, those are gay,' and I said, 'They're not gay, they're people.' In 1956." So I think that was my favorite. I think that was my favorite Joe Biden story about how he's talking about how his father, in what would have been the 1940s, allegedly they saw two men either kissing or holding hands, and my dad said, "Joey, that's love," and I was like, "Hey, Alex, I'll take things that never fucking happened for 800.
There's no way. It was probably like
no fucking way.
And then my dad beat them up because it's the 1940s.
Well, you're talking to a guy who, when he was vice president, is on television saying, marriage is between a man and a woman. So you expect me to believe that this person's father in the 1940s was like, I'm cool with it?
Yeah, no.
Like, come on. Like there's lies and then there's bullshit.
So I know that we've been joking about the politician fighting thing, but I'm pretty sure we just came up with an awesome movie idea, guys, where it's like the Hunger Games, but like they're fighting to become the leaders and people in the united government, and it's like this whole competition, and they fight against all the other candidates, and there's boxing and wrestling, and it's like the Olympics, but with like various different competitions to see who's the most fit to rule the nation.
And the current champion is the president. Sounds like you're right there.
Yeah,
it does kind of sound like an amazing movie. You know, as you're saying that, I'm like, that sounds great. Actually, I would watch that.
But it would eviscerate governments as we know it, because most of these people can't even run, much less fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a new thing, and it's like the main character is like an older guy who was like a politician from the old guard, and he's like a Rocky, but he's like Rocky for Rocky Balboa Rocky. You know, he's not really quite in shape anymore.
You got arthritis, so you can't run.
Yeah, you can't run. You can't run because you're getting too old.
It's like the scene in Rocky Balboa where he's listing all of his ailments, and he's like, "So we're just gonna have to hit really hard."
And I'm picturing a scene where it's with the main character who's running to be like the president or whatever, and the trainer is like, "You want to run for president? First, you have to run a mile."
That's awesome. So,
but then inevitably you'll have the guy that doesn't even want to be president. He just wants to be the best.
I mean, he just wants to be the best. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy of the movie.
That's the villain.
He's the villain.
He's like, "Hey, Mickey, I don't want to be president. I just want to go the distance."
I just want to go the distance.
Oh, God.
So,
and he gets in there, he's like, "Yo, I did it! And I abdicate!" And then it's like, give it to the runner-up, but his runner-up has a broken jaw and is unconscious, so it's like disheartening.
Deadpool.
One day we'll make it into a movie.
One day, Deadpool and Wolverine. The tickets went on sale for Deadpool and Wolverine. Are you guys gonna go watch Deadpool and Wolverine?
You're goddamn right, I am.
Is it gonna save the MCU?
Yes.
Potentially, it could.
You think it will? I mean, I'm in camp. I don't think the MCU is dying, but I think it's like Disney at this point.
Well, no, it's. I shouldn't say it'll fix it because one movie cannot fix it. But what it might do, narratively speaking, is give them the tools that they need to fix it.
I think so. Yeah, just the consistency.
Before I answer your question, Justin, part of your Broadway World podcast says at least Trump would last at least a few minutes.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Trump's definitely a biter, right?
It depends on the competition. If you want me to run a marathon, not gonna happen. But if we're gonna do a chicken wing eating contest, I will dominate.
But Trump's like if in a fight like Joe Biden and Donald Trump's a biter, right?
Donald Trump would beat him in a fight.
But he's a biter, right?
Donald Trump fought Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 23. He did. Briefly, but he did.
It's an amazing clip. It's an amazing clip. So yeah, Deadpool, Wolverine. We will be there. Day one.
Oh yeah.
Probably.
I was actually funny enough. I was going to ask if you wanted me to pre-order tickets because I can.
Maybe we'll talk about it.
When does it come out?
Like not till July. That's why I'm like I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's why. I don't need to yet.
I think it's because I'm.
Let's get through June.
The thing where we watch movies, I'm a member. Where yada yada yada.
Cine Club.
So I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, Cine Club. I'm pretty sure that we're. Part of your Broadway World says, whereas Biden would die in a second in the Hunger Games.
I think they both would die in a second in the Hunger Games, if I'm being honest.
But yeah, no, I think because I'm a member of Cine Club, I think I get early access to tickets. So yeah, let me know when you want me to buy those, and I'm definitely going to because I want to watch that.
So Jake, remind me. When we did our Toon Talk 2.0 episode on Star Wars, where you showed up in a goddamn Star Trek uniform like a beloved internet troll, it was delightful. Everyone should go watch that. It was a great time. Virus was very upset. He was very upset. It was delightful. Did you say you liked the Chris Pratt, the 2009
Chris
one?
Pine.
That was one of your recommendations, right?
Only the 2009.
Yeah.
The other ones are dog shit, but I really, really liked.
Really, because most people, and I'm not a Star Trek fan, so I like that first one because it kind of it's a really not Star Trek movie, and that's why I like it.
It is in spirit, but obviously because Star Trek's one flaw, if it has one, is that it is kind of slow, but I prefer to think of that as a little bit more realistic, because the vast majority, and Lower Decks kind of makes a joke about this, the vast majority of life on a starship is really fucking boring.
I mean, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very much a day in, day out kind of grind that you're just in space.
My favorite not Star Trek show is The Orville.
Love The Orville.
Orville's so
it's
good.
such a great show.
It's so good.
Love The Orville.
That's the show that makes you
So
go,
I was nervous.
Seth MacFarlane is a good actor, actually?
Well, that's it. That's his love letter to Star Trek, and I love. There are still some Trekkies that are like, "It's not Star Trek." I'm like, sometimes it does Star Trek better than Star Trek.
That's what Star Trek fans were saying. That's what kind of made me go after it, because I was like, because a lot of people say one of the best Star Trek movies is Galaxy Quest. That's the best Star Trek movie that's not a Star Trek movie. So good.
Love that movie.
I think if they had done a Galaxy Quest series back then, I think it would have done phenomenal.
Absolutely.
But just another point on the Orville. So I was intrigued by it because that was also if Seth MacFarlane makes it, I'll at least check it out. Like, I check out the Ted series, not thinking I was going to like it, and I actually love it.
So good.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, but so I saw the trailer for the Orville, and I was like, because the one thing that always bugged me about Star Trek is that they don't acknowledge like anything from the 20th century unless it was, or the early 21st century, unless it was like highbrow shit. Like, everybody loves classical music and Shakespeare and all this shit. And I like the idea of some people just being like, there's an old Earth show called Jerry Springer that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, because like this is going to happen.
Stuff.
Well, and there's a moment that I loved it for Comedy Gold, but I wish they'd continued it or put it in at the end of the episode where Bortus is about to sing karaoke for My Heart Will Go On.
Oh, that was so good. Yeah, that's a really good
Somebody's like, this is a song from Earth's 20th century. I will sing it now. And then they start, and then they cut it off.
Or another thing that I love is with the female Mocklin, the one lady where she's really into Dolly Parton and ends up talking to the tribulation. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's so funny, like so great,
so good.
I love that gag. And the Orville though, it's a real shame. I assume. I don't think it was canceled per se, but there's not any word on a fourth season.
It hasn't picked up yet. No,
they're in limbo.
There should be, because season 3 was so good. It's all good. But
yeah,
season 3 was so fucking good.
A Tale of Two Topas is such a good episode.
Oh my god!
Like oh my god, it made me feel feelings.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, anything, any episode with the Mocklins, but like Gordon, his series of episodes about his experiences with the 21st century are incredible.
That was rough.
The ethics
was rough.
Like, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, but like for then when they then go like, oh, we didn't come back far enough. Okay, fine, we'll go back even further and get you before you grow these attachments, and it like makes you question the moral ethics of it, and like, but at
the same time though, they have a leg to stand on because he did pollute the timeline as far as they can tell. So it's
absolutely,
but that's what the Orville does better than I think any other sci-fi show, is the moral gray area where both sides have a point. Like, going back to Topa, like, and again, as the story progresses, the Mocklins are shown in a much more unfavorable light. Yeah. But at least initially, they at least have the argument of, this is our culture. The directive of the Union says you are not to interfere in other species' cultures. Yeah. So then you ask the really hard questions of things that are even happening today. It's like, okay, and it changes by situation, is at what point does the society's culture, at what point does that become superseded by just the general notion of right and wrong? Yeah. And it's a legit question. It's a legit question.
And they absolutely...
But it's hard. It's hard to answer, because it's like, okay, where's the line? Because like, there are cultures on Earth that still practice genital mutilation, which obviously, especially us in the West, are like, that's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But where's the line? Because there's conversations about circumcision, like in the United States. It's like, well, I mean,
That is the
that is
analogy that they use in the
that
episode.
is yeah.
Yeah,
But then there's even, and then I think they use at one point they use circumcision as an example, right? But then I
Yeah,
think
they do.
you could take the argument to its extreme and having a baby's ears pierced.
Yeah.
Most people
Oh,
consider
yeah.
that fairly benign, but some people that's a hill they will die on. So it's like, where's the line?
Absolutely. And that's
And
one
it
thing
asks
that
these questions without being
Yeah.
preachy, and I like it.
Exactly. That's exactly why I like the show, is because they're not even just with the Mocklins, but with other, like the Kalons and like like a whole bunch of other things in the show as well. There are so many parallels that you can make to real life, to our modern day, and just go like, yeah, it makes you think. It makes you think, and it makes you question. And I appreciate a show that's capable of doing that without, you're right, being too preachy or too like over the head, beating me over the head about it.
Yeah.
It's good. And whenever
Because Star
someone
Trek,
asks
yeah.
me, like what I hope our future is like, that's kind of the show that I point to where I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what I'd like. I'd like that future.
Yeah, that's the future I'd like. Yeah, that's the one I'd be happy
Well, because
with.
it reminds me of Deep Space Nine, which Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek series for a number of reasons. Because for one, to me, it seems the most real. Like the story begins with a planet that's recently been liberated from a military occupation. And it goes into the nitty gritty of like there are different factions. It's provisional government. There are still elements of terrorism all over the place. There's religious zealots. There's different religious orders. There's religious moderates who are trying to just get some form of unity. And then you add all the other elements that come into play. Like there's enough drama on the planet of Bajor alone to carry a series. And then you start involving other things. And it's just like, to me, it's the most realistic Star Trek because Gene Roddenberry had said initially that they didn't want interpersonal conflict between the crew members, and the writers hated him for it because it's like, how the fuck are we supposed to write a show where people aren't allowed to have disagreements with each other? And he didn't want war, but if you can't argue amongst the crew, you need an enemy. And so the Klingons were created initially to not be at war, but be kind of a shadow adversary. But then turns out people like conflict, so then they started writing Klingons more and more, and the rest is history.
Yeah, people like conflict. People tend to like conflict in their shows.
Well, because if you don't have
not
conflict,
just in
it
the
just
shows.
becomes. Yeah. Well, no, but if you don't have conflict in the show, then it just becomes security camera footage.
Yeah.
And that's boring.
Yeah.
But isn't that
true.
show about a space station? So I mean, theoretically, just having security footage of a benign space station is. No, that's not interesting. I tried to set myself up to say it was, and then I couldn't do it.
No, a lot of people. A lot of people who haven't really watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine tend to give it a lot, because I've never met anyone who watched Deep Space Nine and didn't at least appreciate it, if it's not their absolute favorite, for all those reasons listed. I mean, it's just so goddamn good.
See, to be fair, I'm the guy who said I want them to do C-SPAN, but it's Star Wars, where it's just like endless footage of like Senate debates in Star Wars about trade. I just want that. Just like you're just watching stupid like what's the word?
See,
like,
I actually enjoyed the political side of episode 1 because it didn't make sense to me when I was a kid, but now I watch it, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff
this.
I'm a firm believer. There's stuff to enjoy in those movies.
Well, the problem I think some people have is some people, for some reason, they view the Galactic Senate as like, or at least in the States, they view the Galactic Senate as a representation of Congress. I'm like, no, it's the UN. If you view it as the UN, it makes way more sense.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I think
because it's a governing body that really doesn't have that much control, but they like to think they do.
Yeah,
because in theory, the Trade Federation just invaded a planet.
Yeah.
And blockaded a planet, and they broke the law, but they can't really do anything about it.
That's so interesting. I'd heard I'd heard the Senate comparison. There's the Newt Gunray he's a parody of a specific senator in the U.S.
I'm sure it's Newt Gingrich.
Yeah, Newt Gingrich. That's what it is. He's a parody of Newt Gingrich specifically. But the comparison to the UN and its ineffectualness does actually make a lot more sense when you put it in that way. That's actually, I never really thought about that.
Well, because it sounds very Hobbesian of me, but unfortunately, without the threat of violence, you don't actually hold any real power unless everyone agrees that these rules must be abided by.
Yeah.
And so when somebody breaks the rules, if there's no threat of force, and not necessarily military force, but if there's no threat of force via sanction or, censure, well, not even censure, because they censure people all the time, and it's just like, okay, don't care.
It becomes like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what happened in the Orville with the Mocklins, where they kept going further and further, and none of them stood up to them.
Yeah.
And then finally you have to say, and then you have to say, fine, you're out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Out. You're out. Yeah, my favorite character, and I love that TED show, don't get me wrong, it's very funny. It's basically live action Family Guy, but it's very funny. But it prevents him from doing Orville season 4, and that bothers me. Because I'm much more interested in Orville season 4. Because
really, yeah, but and it's a sad truth. There's probably more pull for Ted as a show than the Orville, but that's a real shame because the Orville's so good.
The chick who plays Adrienne Palicki or whatever, who plays the girlfriend, she basically said as much. The reason why season 4 hasn't happened yet is because Seth MacFarlane's too busy. He's split himself too far, but. I really wanted a character I really wanted to see come back in season 4.
I would really just appreciate if he would say, we're going to do season 4. I don't know when yet, but we're going to do it. I'd be okay with that.
Or not. Or be
let me know. Or because I'd honestly be okay, and I usually don't say it, but like, okay, do somehow, some way, kind of like what they did with Enterprise, is make a Star Trek, make a show in that universe, but maybe... obviously you're going to follow a different crew, but like, I don't know what you would call it because the first one's called or that would be like the first Star Trek being called Enterprise.
Are you trying to suggest Seth MacFarlane?
If he doesn't want to do it, if he wants to do it, absolutely keep him in and follow the Orville crew. Yeah. But I want more of that universe. Yeah. And maybe do a guest spot to connect it, kind of like what they did with Picard and Deep Space Nine. You connect the universe. Hey, these are people we know, so that means it exists in the same universe. But maybe have I don't know, the first season of the show could be, because they're still at war. Are they were trying to get an alliance with the Krill.
They had gone to war with the war with the Krill had reignited, and the Krill were now teamed up with the Mocklins, who had left the Union.
Okay,
and
that's right. But what happened?
Teamed up with the Kaylon, because the Kaylon.
That's right. Okay. That's right. Okay. I couldn't remember where we stood because it's been a minute. So now your mission is you send somebody and have a Mocklin captain. Maybe. Oh no, there aren't that many in the Union. Never mind.
What you could do, because at one point in the show, Topa is trying to take the captain test to become the captain. So you could have it be where it's like it's a year, maybe a year and a half or something later, and now she's like rising up in the ranks on a new ship.
The Orville season 4 can shift focus to Topa, and you can do more than a year time jump, but Topa is now the captain. There's still a war going on. Ed has been promoted. He's now in negotiations. He's a diplomat now. Yeah. Topa is being sent on a mission to somehow, some way, either sway the Krill or probably more likely the Mock. Well, you wouldn't send Topa for that, though. I don't know. There's something that can be done, though.
You could have Topa go and do negotiations with a different, introduce a new species or a new race, have her go and do negotiations, and I would actually put Seth MacFarlane in a lieutenant position, so he can be one of those like the people that show up on the video screen.
He'd be promoted to an admiral. Yeah. So he's wearing purple now.
Move him into
and he shows that. Then you're gonna. Yeah, then you can have him pop up on the screen, go like, Topa, I need you to go and check out such and such planet, and he can still be on the show, but he doesn't need to be there for every episode.
And then you can have people rotate in and out, and then you could still do some really interesting things, because then you can explore, as TV wants to do nowadays. So let them do it, but do it right. Topa's a woman or a female. I don't know how the Mocklins would phrase it. So she's a female captain. Not only is she a female captain, she's a Mocklin female captain. So that's everybody's like, which, I mean, the Planetary Union is a huge collection of planets and different species. So some of them may not even be aware that there are Mocklin females. Yeah. So that's a shocker when they first meet her. Yeah. Because it's kind of like how everybody's shocked by Bortus being a member of a male-only species. Except it's not. But same thing. It's just sexism.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
The character,
and then you could have and then you could have the doctor follow her because the doctor always goes where she's needed. So the doctor goes with her, and
Bortus would obviously. Well,
and-
Bortus probably wouldn't be under her, would he?
No, I
Or
don't
maybe
think so.
Bortus is the captain and Topa serves under.
I mean, certainly that would be
Oh,
the
that
easiest
could
way
work.
to we just promote Boris. But then what do we explain with Kelly? Does Kelly go off with?
well,
Seth MacFarlane?
or you could maybe, or you could have.
No.
Yeah, I
Kelly-
find that unlikely that Kelly would be away from Ed.
Yeah, so maybe she also gets
well,
promoted to
if
admiral. then?
Ed, she could go with Ed, and then at that point, Bortus could become the captain of the Orville.
Yeah.
And then Isaac, the doctor, Topa would all be on the new ship. Maybe
I think
what's his name?
Gordon would. I think the crew would largely be the same.
Yeah, I think so.
Although,
Yeah.
And then what was the name of the girl they introduced in season 3?
The blonde
And
one.
ended up-
died.
Yeah,
she
the
died.
blonde one.
She died at the end of season.
Yeah,
3.
she died. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler
Holy
alert.
shit! I love that whole arc.
Great
That was
arc.
so fucking good.
So
Though,
good.
because for those who don't know, she started out hating Kalons for a pretty justifiable reason. They
Yeah.
killed her
Yeah.
best friend.
Yeah.
So obviously she's not too fond of Isaac, and then she ends up sacrificing herself to save everyone, including Isaac.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
really really quite powerful moment.
That's
I
why I
was
say
like-
the show is so well written,
But
it's so well done,
so-
so well acted.
So good.
the character.
That was a very emotional scene. Not gonna lie, I was like, how is this fake show making me feel things?
Oh, the character that
So
I
there
want
we go, Seth MacFarlane. Seth
That's it.
MacFarlane, we've given you an easy
Please.
out for season 4 that you can do if you can't be on it.
You can have it.
We
It's
just
yours.
want, but and
We
just
might
for the
get paid,
record, we prefer you to be on it, but
Yeah.
just in case you don't want to. And you know what's funny, and this would be hilarious if it came full circle, because obviously the dream, and we can segue into sponsorship if you want to hear. So the dream is to grow. There's a lot of very exciting things coming with this podcast and everybody else's podcast, but it would be hilarious because Seth MacFarlane ends up creating the Orville. Because it's well known he loves Star Trek. He has a guest spot on a random episode of Enterprise, and it's hilarious to see him.
That's funny. I didn't know
Wouldn't
that.
it be fucking hilarious if we got big enough to be like guest, like background guys in the Orville, just like random security
That would be
guys?
rad.
I would do.
That would make
I
me
would do
happy.
it. I would do it for free. I would fly myself.
Absolutely,
Just
I would do it
Give
for free.
give me. I'll pay for my own uniform. Just let me do it. Let me get.
I'd
Just
man,
I'll just be a
Seth
guy standing in the
MacFarlane,
background pressing buttons.
Your show was my entire identity as a teenager. But no, the character I want to bring, I think I had a theory at the back of his episode might come back because his episode felt unresolved. Is alternate timeline Gordon? I think that if they did season 4, I think he might come back as a villain. Because I don't know, it just kind of felt like his resentment towards having his timeline wiped out. It was like just kind of Gordon be like, "Well, you did what you had to do." Kind of just felt so like I don't
Well,
know.
that makes sense because that Gordon didn't live through it.
I could see if they did a storyline where like the universe got fractured and like converging timelines converged on each other, then yeah, okay, you could maybe bring him back in that one episode.
So,
but I don't see him being
yeah.
a multi-episode thing.
No, like when you bring him back for like one episode, and you have Gordon versus Gordon, and then you could argue the ethics.
So
of the
basically,
timeline.
the same logic used in Back to the Future Part 4 concept video,
Yes,
Yeah.
which is amazing because I want that so bad too.
I have to watch
want
that
it so
still.
bad.
I keep forgetting to.
Oh, you haven't watched it yet?
Not yet.
Oh, it's so good.
yeah.
It's so, as someone who up to seeing that was always like Back to the Future is perfect. Don't touch it. Don't do anything with it. Then I watched that and I'm like, God damn it! I want Back to the Future Part 4 now. If it's like this, if it's exactly like this, I want it. I
mean,
it back.
it'll happen on the day that Bob Gale dies. That's how you know Bob Gale is dead, because the day he dies, they'll announce Back to the Future 4.
And see, here's the thing, because a lot of people, and rightfully so, like Christopher Lloyd's not getting any younger, although he could still play Doc Brown, but Michael J. Fox would be problematic. But I don't care if you do it live action or not. Like,
Yeah,
it
do it
could be.
animated.
I'll even take a novelization. I just want the story.
To be fair, they made a pretty good point-and-click game that has Christopher Lloyd in it and a pretty darn good Michael J. Fox voice match. That's honestly pretty good. That's basically Back to the Future 4. And they made a comic.
And Michael J. And Michael J. Fox does show up in it too.
Oh, yeah, he does show up in it as well. Yeah, I can't remember if it's Telltale or not.
It was Telltale.
Oh, it was Telltale. Yeah.
Yeah, see,
and-
the video I sent you uses some elements from the Telltale game, but I played through the Telltale game, and it's the video I sent you was better.
Oh,
But the
interesting.
Telltale
Okay.
game wasn't terrible, but it was. But the thing about Telltale is it begins basically. Well, it starts at Back to the Future 1 and just goes in a different direction. But this one actually takes place after Part 3, several years after Part 3.
The Telltale game takes place after the fourth or after the third movie. It is essentially like a fourth story, and it goes back into like the 30s. So you get Doc Brown as a teenager at first. You get to see my favorite of the episodes was when you got to go to the alternate Hill Valley prison where Doc Brown is first Citizen Brown, and you get to, because it breaks the trope of it always having to be a Tanner who is the problem, and you get to see like, what if Doc Brown was the one that was like the problem.
So you guys haven't watched the video yet?
No, not yet.
No, that will.
Okay, yeah. You should. You should.
That'll be on the list.
It's on my list.
It's exceptionally good.
I'll
put it. This is how good it is. Every once in a while, periodically, I will go through and watch the Back to the Future. And I did this before I saw that. It is now in my head canon. It is Back to the Future Part 4. So I'll watch 1, 2, 3, and then that one.
Interesting.
Okay, yeah, definitely gonna have to go and check that out.
And then finally, the final piece of news for the day. How do you guys feel about Johnny Depp coming back to Pirates of the Caribbean?
I mean, I think that's a series that should have stopped a while ago.
I mean, the last two were bad. We can all agree on that, right? We can all agree the last two were bad.
It's ironic because if anyone can save the franchise, it is Johnny Depp coming back. But it's a franchise that shouldn't be saved.
So
yeah, like I quite honestly, I mean, I like the first three. I think the first three are kind of, they tell the story. And all the ones after that kind of just don't need to exist. They should retire the series for like 10, 15 years. Let it go, like kind of fade from the collective consciousness, and then reboot it with an entirely new cast and new story if they feel the need to.
And if you want to, you can do a fun little cameo with Johnny Depp in the first new one, but you don't have to. Just to be, so people can be like, oh,
yeah, exactly. Or even if it's like, you know, I haven't. Like a name cameo where it's like, I haven't heard of a pirate this infamous since Captain Jack Sparrow, and people can go like,
well, and here's the thing, it's very likely that Captain Jack Sparrow has a bunch of little bastard children running around.
I mean, yes, very likely.
I mean,
so it'd be easy enough to find one of them and just follow him and then be like, I'm Captain Sam Sparrow.
that's pretty
but my
good.
name's not actually Sparrow because my mom didn't know who my dad was, but then I found out because look at me, I look just like Captain Jack.
That's his big moment at the end when he owns it. He's like, I am Sam Sparrow.
Oh, and then the gag can be he runs into the actual old Captain Jack and be like, he doesn't look anything like me.
here's my pitch for bringing Johnny Depp back. Like, let's say another one of these stupid movies is inevitable. This is the only way I'm okay with bringing Johnny Depp back is if we kill Captain Jack Sparrow. We kill him off. Straight up kill him off.
Solo his ass.
Yeah, and make it super sad. Let him, like, own the moment. And give him this big hero moment where he sacrifices himself. And we see him blown up so thoroughly he can never come back.
And then it pans to a woman on the shoreline holding her belly.
Yeah, as he said.
And then it cuts to, like, 20 years later or something like that. It's like, Sam, the food's getting cold. Mom, I gotta practice my sailing to live up to my dad.
But, like, Johnny Depp's gotta show up, though. He can't, like, show up and get fed his lines via earpiece. And, like, he can't show up and half-ass it. Like, he's gotta put in the work and, like, actually put in for the performance if this is gonna work. But one last time. I'm willing to accept one last time, but he has to die.
Or if Captain Jack doesn't die and he teams up with his boy at the end and then maybe dies at the end. A fun little gag could be they go into an inn on Tortuga and there's just a pile of shit sitting in the middle of the bed. And he just puts up the Johnny and be like, I think a dog was in here.
Oh boy.
Oh god.
I mean,
so to be clear, none of us want this, right? Like that's
no.
I don't know. I'd be there for the Johnny Depp shit on the bed gag. I would be there for it. I think that would be really fun.
Little Jack Sparrow hat on top of it.
I just think it's a series which needs to be retired for a
Fair.
while, a long while.
I
Yeah.
agree. But if they're gonna do it, I think they need Johnny Depp.
Yo, I think so.
Oh,
Yeah.
if they're gonna, yeah,
There's
and
no
if they're gonna do it, they
rebooting
have
it
to.
with someone
they have
else.
to have
No.
him. But
No, there's no way.
It not right now. Like you have to wait until it fades from the collective consciousness.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
pretty
no, you have to have Johnny Depp there.
Or if
They've
Johnny
proved
Depp
that.
dies.
The other ones that wasn't there other ones that didn't have him or something and
No,
didn't do well?
Not yet. No, they haven't tried this without him yet.
Oh, okay. See, that just shows how little I've cared about it.
But yes, with that sponsorship section and today's sponsor, I mean, you hear it at the top of every show. We pitch it. We say it. We did a really long promo of it in the first episode. It's the whole reason we're here. It's the Arete Podcast Pantheon Network, and here we have the podcast boss, the boss as our other podcast boss would put it. We have Jake. Jake, tell us what you do, because you do a lot.
Podcast a lot.
You podcast
A lot.
No, yeah, I do podcast a lot, probably more than I should. But the thing about podcasting is once you start doing it, why are you eating the blind? My cat is just chewing on a blind. Stop that. Anyway. Why?
Have you considered it's delicious?
Chaos.
But anyway, yes. When you start podcasting, you become addicted to it. So much so, it's kind of like heroin, except it doesn't kill you. Well, it might kill you, but it does it much more slowly. But yeah, there's a lot of... It's expanded more than I thought it would, and it's about to expand even further. There's about three new podcasts that are in the works right now. And the best part is I don't have to do anything with them, which is beautiful.
Nice.
But yeah, so we're trying to grow it. There's a lot of changes coming, as you guys are aware of.
Yeah, we are
There's
aware.
a lot of really cool stuff coming up. So you should just subscribe to all of them. But the beauty is you don't have to, because it's a whole network of different podcasts, although we have quite a few pop culture ones. So if you enjoy Spur of the Moment, you'll probably enjoy Toon Talk. And Average Intelligence delves into politics a little bit more. But the best part is we don't compete with each other because it's not old TV. You don't have to catch them all at the same time, although I guess you do if you want to catch them live. But you can watch them whenever you want. So
Very
check
true.
out all the podcasts. And if you have an idea for a podcast, don't hesitate to reach out, because we can help you make it a reality. And I will shut up now and get back to the show that you're all here for.
This is where I'm going to step in. I'm also going to say that in regards to starting the podcast, they provide you, like I say it at the top of every show, and it's genuine. They do. They provide you with like all of the resources you could possibly need. That playlist that you have was like instrumental, and you're constantly very kind. You're like, they got it off the ground so quickly. The reason why that happened is I followed your that playlist like it was a step-by-step guide. And I went from video 1, I was like, okay, I basically know this. Video 2, okay, I get this. Like the shorts. I put out shorts every day from the video I learned watching you. Spotify for podcasts, like learning about all of that. Like instrumental to getting this done as quickly as I did. So if this is something you're interested in doing, they're the people that'll help you out. And also you should watch the other shows. They're very entertaining. I have a great time being on them, and they're fun to watch. The other podcast hosts all have interesting perspectives, and we've had Haley on already, and she was fun, and everyone else is invited if they want. We're taking all comers.
And just remember, knowledge is power.
And in regards to the future, I'm not sure what we're allowed to say, so I just let Jake say it all.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, I know. There's another person involved in this who's not okay. Who's the Mad Captain? Virus, or maybe Max, or you?
Who's the captain?
Yeah, who would you say is the Mad? Or if you're both the Mad Captain, are you Mad Captaining together?
We're definitely Mad Captaining together, but in different ways. So I would say, with no disrespect whatsoever to my partner in crime, Virus Fox, but I would say I'm probably the captain of the podcasting side of things, but there's a lot of interconnected business that's happening now, so it's kind of hard, which I like. I like the fact that it's very much a team that's doing everything. It's not one person dictating. It's very much a team making a bunch of different things happen. But I would say in the podcasting realm, and I only say this because Virus is running all these new podcast ideas by me, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you asking me for? And then he reminds me, he's like, well, you know,
this is your baby, man.
He's like, well, you are Arete Media. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess that's right. But, like, you know me, I have no standards for podcasts. I said, if you want to get two strippers on to talk about cocaine every week, go nuts. Somebody will listen to it.
I mean, the advertisers are going to love it, but...
Well, but that's just it. They don't have to advertise for that one.
Yeah.
You have a whole network you can pick from. It's like I said, we were talking about sponsorships the other day. I'm like, yeah, but you got to remember, dude, some sponsors may not be appropriate because, like, I can't think of a good example, but I can imagine... i.e., you know, you're probably not going to advertise children's toys with the Strippers and Coke podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's okay because they have. I don't know though. There might be some single moms that check that out. You never know.
You never know. No judgment. No judgment.
Pampers might frown on it, but I mean, there might be a demographic there. You never know. But my point is, you have choices.
Yeah. But that's all. Yeah, that's all very exciting. And we're excited. We're excited for the future around here at the Spurr Podcast. Let me tell you. But with that, we finally get to move into the topic because there is no rails here, and that is it's the end of the world as we know it, and we feel fine.
We begin
as we always begin with rapid fire. So Jake, how many movies did you manage to watch in your?
I only watched one that I hadn't seen before, but others I know of others that I watched semi-recently, so they're still fresh enough.
So we'll play the game that we play with Haley, where we'll just go through our rapid fire as we normally would, and we can play Has Jake Seen It? And if you haven't seen it, we'll tell you about it. And if you have seen it, you offer your input. Jordan, you may go first. What is your first one?
The first one that I'm gonna talk about is the one that I think we both watched, which is This Is the End.
Okay, good. I was gonna do that one first too, so I'm glad you did.
I love it.
For those who don't know, it's a weird one because it's like they're all playing themselves, and it's about the end of the world, obviously, and you've got Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel, and I think I got that name right.
Yep.
And the rest. Because I'm not going to take time naming every single one of them. And there's a lot of funny jokes in there. There's a lot of weird jokes in there. The Channing Tatum one will always make me laugh, especially when you hear the behind the scenes stuff. Like when you hear the behind the scenes story of how they just phoned him up and were like, "Hey, you mind being in this movie?" And he's like, "Sure." And then found out about it all afterwards. Oh, so funny. But overall, it's enjoyable, but weird.
It's very, very funny. Spoiler alert: Jonah Hill gets assaulted by a demon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does. It's not cool, guys. It's not cool.
It's funny as shit, but it's not cool.
It's not cool.
It's not cool, but it's funny, but it's not cool.
And then I just love the fact that James Franco stops getting raptured because he gets an ego about it.
Right? My two things about that movie is, number one, it is probably the most unrelatable movie in existence.
But that's the joke.
Number two, it is aged perfectly because when you get down to it, the inciting incident is that Jay Baruchel doesn't want to go to James Franco's house because James Franco is insufferable. Like, man, it could not have aged better. Pretty on
the nose.
And just like
I love the bit at the beginning when Seth Rogen's like, "No, man, I'm on a cleanse," and then it cuts to them at Carl's Jr. being like, "Oh."
My thing though is like how the most unrealistic part of that movie is that James Franco Seth Rogen picking up Jay Baruchel at the airport, and one guy just fly by recognizes him. It's like, no, he'd have a guy who would do that for him. And he's like, oh yeah, no, they're definitely not taking a taxi to James Franco's house. They have a guy who drives them to James Franco's house and then picks them up
He has a limousine.
Yeah,
Come on, he's rich.
He's a very wealthy man. He's not taking it. It's so disingenuous.
Well, remember though, your money does not go as far in Hollywood.
True.
So you pretty well have to be. You pretty much have to be rich just to live there.
Yeah, but he's Seth Rogen.
True.
I mean, I think he made $1 million.
I don't like. Okay. He wouldn't necessarily have a limo, but I do believe he has his own car.
He certainly has a guy
And he
or
wouldn't be taking
an
a
assistant
taxi.
who drives him places for sure. There's no way he doesn't.
Well, and I was told, however, though, by somebody that I don't remember if they still live in LA, but they used to live in LA. They say house parties. So never lived in LA, so if I'm wrong, it's not my fault. I was informed poorly, but I was told that house parties were very, very popular there because everything's so goddamn expensive.
Oh, all right then. There's been a lot of times this week where I'm
enough.
like, this feels very LA. The humor in this is very LA. You may have heard me use that phrase this week.
I wouldn't know either. I've never lived in LA either, so you know.
But
I was
Canadian.
asked recently if I would move to LA, and I said, if you pay me enough, I'll move anywhere, but it would take a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
Just for practical reasons and being around all those insufferable Californians.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. You'd have to incentivize me financially quite a bit.
A lot.
I would need enough money to basically have my own self-sustaining compound, so I wouldn't have to go out in the world unless I wanted to.
Fair.
Like every couple of years, I'd just go out and be like, yeah, I think I'm going to interact with people, and then I'd come back like a half hour later and be like, fuck, that's why I stay home.
And even then,
that would be me.
My dream would be to own a home here, and then have like an apartment in LA that I can stay in when I work, and then I can come home and stay at home. Like I'd be a foot in, foot out kind of scenario for me at most.
And a lot of people do that.
I'd like to be rich enough to have dual citizenship.
But do either of you have any more thoughts on This Is the End before we move on?
I remember it being hysterically funny, but it doesn't have a lot. It does. Well, I guess it kind of has reviewability if you're into like the Judd Apatow style comedies, which have really kind of not aged super well. And I don't mean that as like they're offensive. There's just something about the style that doesn't resonate anymore the way it used to.
I felt that when I was watching it for sure. I was like, oh, this is of an era for me.
I definitely think it feels niche.
Yeah, and I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, this is offensive now. I'm just like, I don't see this being as popular as it was. It's been done too much now. Yeah. It doesn't hit the same.
Yeah. With that, I'll go next, I guess. The Cabin in the Woods. I watched that
long time ago.
I like that movie.
You've seen The Cabin in the Woods. When I was watching it, I like it. Number one, Chris Hemsworth is in it for some reason. I think it's his first movie that he ever filmed. Yeah. He's the jock. And he has a horrid American accent. His Australian accent is like...
Holy shit! I never knew that was Chris Hemsworth. Oh my god!
Creeping through the whole time. He's
comes in there. He's like, what's going on, fellas? Let's go play the sports ball.
Yeah. Oh, it's so bad. His Australian accent is like creeping out. But my thing with that movie is like I'm way more interested in like the Office guys. Like the guys working in the office. Like I would totally. This is the only time I'd ever say this. I totally watch a prequel where it's just like the history of this ritual and like how like okay, so some of them can fail and some of them can succeed, and like as long as one of them succeeds, as long as one of them succeeds, the whole thing's fine. Like what are the rules? Like this is one of those ones I saw at TikTok where someone was like, what's a movie that should have been a franchise? This is definitely like I'd watch like 100 of these where it's just different rituals and we get to see the different horror themes used, and we finally one of them's the merman, and I am like, oh, the second half is just super fun. It was really fun to be like going to friends and being like, you will love this movie, but I can't tell you why. You're just going to have to trust me. And then you show it to a friend, and we had a mutual friend. We did that too, and he saw it, and then he went to his girlfriend and went, "So, you're gonna love this movie," and it was like the most gratifying thing ever. I was like, "Yeah, I'm passing it along. It's great." But yeah, it's a very fun movie. Very, very fun movie. Jordan, do you have what's next?
My next one is Tomorrowland. A fun family Disney movie.
Fun family Disney movie about the prophetic apocalyptic end of the world.
You've never seen that one?
You've never seen that one?
Not seen that one.
That one is so I'm not gonna say that it's necessarily like the greatest movie ever. It being based off of a theme ride and everything, but theme park ride. But basically premise is that they're the scientists and the artists and all the smartest people in the world create this different dimension, which is Tomorrowland, where they basically build everything their heart could ever imagine. In the beginning of the movie, the one of the main characters ends up going to it through Disneyland, which is kind of a fun little reference to the fact that it's a like that's where it originates from. So he enters it through It's a Small World in like 1950 something, I think is the time. Over the course of the movie, the one of the other main character girls is basically trying to help Mel Gibson's character. George Clooney, not Mel Gibson. Thank you, Justin.
Mel Gibson.
Not Mel Gibson.
Very different movie.
Very different actor. But trying to basically save the world from the apocalypse. You end up finding out that they use a device in Tomorrowland to watch Earth using tachyon and all that, tachyon particles. And it is essentially creating a feedback loop, which is marching Earth towards the apocalypse, even though they've tried to warn them about it. And so yeah, it's cute. It's one that I like putting on when I'm like I need a pick me up, because it's just like I like to believe that there is hope for humanity, even though every sign kind of points towards this being an eventuality.
We're heading off the cliff.
Oh, I know about that, and but that's interesting that you bring that up. So that's actually something I like to remind people of all the time. So, I blame the news media because it is 100% their fault. So the world is actually doing quite well in the scheme of things. So if you look at just about every metric, the number of people that are in absolute poverty worldwide has gone down. The planet actually exceeded the UN projection of that by about 50%. So we did it in half the time. And abject poverty, by their standard, is people making less than $1 a day, relatively speaking. Well, not relatively speaking, but you know what I mean. Like $1 goes pretty far in some economies. That's what I mean by that. Outside of certain areas, this is not true. But if you look at the planet as a whole, wild forestation is up compared to even in like the 1800s. Through various conservation outfits. Again, this is not true in certain places, but through certain programs like wild fish farming, fish populations are recovering. Some coral reefs have died, but they figured out ways to create new ones. Air quality is better in the vast majority of the world. We're doing good, generally speaking. Even what was the infant mortality rate in certain parts of Africa is now like not nearly as bad as it once was. So we're actually doing okay. There's some fuckery abound, but generally speaking, there's a show that I think it was National Geographic did not that long ago. Well, actually, it was probably a long time ago. I just don't think it was, but it was called Earth: A New Wild. And unlike a lot of other nature shows that tell you how we're destroying the planet, the whole premise of this show takes you through and shows you how people are saving the planet.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, they need to make a lot more of this shit, because this is much more positive. And they show you how, like, through certain, and I like to remind people, in my own lifetime, we watched the American alligator go from being an endangered species to being an infestation.
Yeah,
like,
that is true. Yeah,
it's a problem. I remember when I was very young, the American alligator was on the endangered species list, and now it's like borderline a problem.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Especially
Because
Florida,
there's some, yeah. Well, it's one of the few habitats they live. Like, that's basically the only place you can find an American alligator outside of, like, some parts of Louisiana. Florida's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And so, no, we're doing okay. There's a lot of species coming off the endangered species list all the time. Now, granted, some are getting added, too. But generally speaking, we're doing okay.
I mean,
So
that's good to hear.
Good job, humanity.
That's good. I mean, no,
But and that's one thing that I like about this movie, to bring it back to the movie, is that, like, basically the idea is that Tomorrowland is like feeding the negative feedback loop, and it kind of does lead into that thought that you were saying about it being a media thing, and it kind of in a not necessarily subtle, but in a family friendly way, kind of promotes that idea where it's like, one of the characters in the movie at a certain point basically says, we're the Titanic. We saw the iceberg. We told the Titanic that it was coming, and you all steered towards it anyway because you feel like obligated to go towards that. And
That's such a problematic statement, though. Go ahead. I'll share my thought after you're done.
The end of the movie, though, kind of is like, it ends on a note of hope of, like, if we're taking proper steps and we're taking proper action, then there is hope, and there is positive, and there is good. And one of the things in the movie, one of the lines that I kind of have always followed is, there's two wolves inside of you at any given time, the negative wolf and the positive wolf, and the one that basically ends up having control is the one that you feed the more often. And as long as you're feeding the right wolf, everything will be fine. And as long as there's a constant negative feedback loop from the media, for example, in our world, feeding that negative loop, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in some situations. And I just like that this movie puts that topic, puts that idea onto the forefront, and kind of gets people, maybe younger people, who and when this movie came out, now it's kind of coming to that point where those younger people are taking the steps to save the crocodiles, for example, or save all those other endangered animals. And it is leading to that more positive outlook that you're talking about. And that all starts with talk and discussion and being aware that this is a thing that we need to be conscious of. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. And the point I was making, though, about the Titanic, the statement that the movie makes about the Titanic is, so this is what happens with a lot of, to bring up the activist types again, is, so that statement is basically saying that the metaphor is that the Titanic was warned and they steered towards the iceberg, and when in fact that metaphor doesn't work because they actually steered away from the iceberg, and the only reason they didn't see it in time is because the ocean was actually quite calm. It's calmer than it should have been, and they couldn't see the waves breaking against the iceberg because, fun fact, it's dark as shit in the middle of the North Atlantic at night, and you can't see fuck all. Now, true, were they going too fast? Probably. But it's also known that if they had, what actually doomed them was steering away from the iceberg, because if they had hit the brakes and hit it head on, they would have taken on some water, but in all likelihood the ship would have survived. It was them trying to avoid it and scraping all along the side that ended up dooming them, because they took on more water than they were able to take on. And so there was
that analogy for the Titanic, you want to steer right into the iceberg then at that point.
What's really funny, though, is that particular line actually comes from the villain of the movie. So the fact that you're like, but he's wrong and he's bad, and he's actually very fitting because he is.
Okay, so then that works, because, but I guess the point that I try to make is, there are so many people, right? And I'm not going to name names on this one, but there are so many people that, at least in my perception, become activists because they have so many problems in their own lives. But it's much easier to point the finger at the rest of the world and say, these are the issues that need fixing, when in reality, like, yes, most of them probably do. But don't you think the people that are best equipped to handle those problems are the ones that have their own shit in order?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, because, again, to shout out to the kid that made the fucking boat that picks garbage out of the Pacific.
Yeah.
Clearly he had his shit in order, and went out and did something about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Tomorrowland, and I think it's a good movie because it brings important topics kind of into the collective consciousness a little more. Plus, it just always makes me smile.
Sure, and that's good. That's always good. Like you have movies like Fern Gully that was made in the '90s that I always say like that movie's so good because it wasn't super like it was preachy, but not to the point of being like obnoxious about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was a kid, it made me give a shit about the rainforest. That stuff is good. That stuff is absolutely good.
I as a kid, I mean, I always gravitated towards shit that hid its message in a cartoon form, and that movie, that one directed by Brad Bird, that was the one where I'm like, let Brad Bird do a Star Wars. I'd watch a Brad Bird Star Wars movie.
Oh, I would absolutely.
Let him do a Star
So you were
Wars.
a fan. So you were a fan of Cartoon All Stars to the Rescue.
I mean,
I know what he's talking about.
I also know what he's talking about. I love that ironically. That's fun because it's bad. That's one of those.
Oh, I'm not even gonna lie. I loved it, and I also loved the. I don't even remember what the organization was, but it was so poorly edited, it's laughable. But I kind of like love it nostalgically.
Oh, yeah.
The commercial that was at the beginning of a lot of like Ninja Turtles VHS releases for home video, when it's like this kid. So first of all, like when I was growing up, I thought that it was inevitable that like by the time I got to high school, they were just drug dealers.
Right.
They were trying to get
And they were
free
wearing
drugs.
a trench coat and they wore a hat. Like that's my image.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You want to buy
And they
some
would-
drugs?"
And they would like berate you for not taking their free marijuana. And I
Right.
think the line is actually, it's like, what is it? Latest thing, pot, marijuana. Just like people don't give drugs away for free.
Right?
No.
They don't do
It's
this.
just generally speaking, they don't want kids to have drugs because they can't pay for.
But
the
even if they
drugs.
want kids to have drugs, the kids have to pay for it.
Right.
Like there aren't these roving bands of like 50s bad boys in leather jackets being like, "Hey Timmy, want to try some weed?"
Like, hey, here's $50 worth of grade A cocaine. Would you like this for free? No.
Tell your friends.
Tell your
I
friends.
I remember the first time I saw that cartoon, and on the one thing I was like, this is silly because, I thought the entire thing was silly. But on the other hand, I was like, but it's kind of cool seeing all these cartoon characters together that I
They
would
knew
never
they
have
were doing
otherwise seen
drugs.
together.
But you know what? And I will sing its praises for one thing, because the climax is actually for what it is, it's powerful. It's not the cartoon characters that set the kids straight. It's him seeing his sister think that her brother will like her if she partakes in the drugs, and that sends him out of it. And I actually like that.
See, I always thought
Yeah.
he only saw the cartoon characters because he was on drugs.
I mean, maybe, but if it works, right?
Yeah, like I thought the idea was he
I
did
never-
drugs and
I
then he saw
never-
cartoon characters.
I never thought about it like that, but you know what? It kind of works, and I'm kind of down with that.
Right?
Which, I mean, to be fair, we're talking about weed, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, he definitely saw the cartoon characters
Yeah,
because of the
The part that made me giggle every time was when Bugs Bunny is like, a joint? And I'm like...
Oh,
it's so funny.
The thing that I hate, though, is none of the cartoon characters acknowledge the fact that the vast majority of them would not exist had it not been for marijuana.
just saying. You said it, not me. You said it. Not
I'm
me.
sorry, you don't come up with the concept. You don't come up with the concept of the Care Bears sober.
You
don't.
The Jim Henson was a dirty hippie. I mean, come on.
And I'm sorry, nobody sober thought. Nobody who was sober ever would think. That's what I'm saying, though. Nobody sober comes up with the idea. It's like, wait, the Muppets?
I'm just saying.
But they're babies.
I'm just saying.
Nobody sober says this.
No, I mean, if you've ever seen, like, watching season 1 of The Muppet Show is incredible because it's just guys doing whatever they want. Like, that, it's incredible. Like, Jim Henson was just like, I'm just going to do what, and he was if he wasn't a stoner hippie, I would be shocked.
I think, yeah, there's an interview that I don't remember what it was pertaining to, but Jordan Peterson was asked about the Muppets. He said, "Oh, the Muppets are great, man." He was like, "But Jim Henson was a stoner." He's like, "You don't come up with that idea sober."
No, no, there's no way.
There's no way that you saw any interview with the man. There's no way that he wasn't a
There's
stoner.
no way.
There's no way that he wasn't.
There's no way. Jordan, you have anything else to say about Tomorrowland?
Nope, that's Tomorrowland.
My next one, 2012.
2012.
You've never seen 2012?
I haven't seen it, and there's a reason I haven't seen it, because I was one of the few people when all that bullshit was going on, and I'm like, you are all wrong. The world is not going to end in 2012, and the fact that they're making a movie about it just shows how low we are as a society. Like, there's no valid reason for believing that just because it's the year 2012 on our arbitrary calendar that the world will end in this particular year. Yet nobody's talking about that. Everybody's like, oh, well, Nostradamus. Nostradamus was a drunk-ass Frenchman who predicted the end of the world no less than a dozen times.
And then
was wrong on all of them.
Yep, they're all wrong. I'm
sorry.
If it makes you
when
feel
your prophecies... When your prophecies are as vague as his, like, you would think one's just bound to be circumstantially right, but even then, they're fucking wrong.
Right? It's incredible. It's a bad movie if it makes you feel any better. The thing I remember the most because
I had no idea.
There's a period of time where I worked at the movie theater, and where I just kind of watched everything, and so I remember the marketing for this so vividly as it being like, this is real, and this is what's really happening, and this is what's really going to happen in 2012. And then, spoiler alert for this movie, the back half of it is that they're on boats, and like, and the whole thing is like they're boats constructed by people who have paid like billions of dollars to be on these boats in order to survive the apocalypse, and it's like, they're like, oh yeah, I spent a billion rupee or $1 billion euros on this. To who and for what purpose? Like, the minute the world ends, that money becomes valueless. So you spent money on nothing.
Well, the only thing I could think of is maybe they were just hedging on the fact, oh yeah, this person is building a boat for the supposed end of the world, but if they're wrong, I still get to keep their money. I could see that, maybe.
No, it's deliberately, like, they know the world's gonna end, and they
know.
It's a worldwide project to create these boats to project the human race.
So Fun fact, though, one of my book reports, they actually acknowledge the fact that money will be worthless, and that's a little detail that I loved in the movie that I'm going to talk about.
Interesting. So,
interesting.
Okay, maybe we'll get to it when I get to my last rapid fire, because never mind, we'll get to it. But no, just overall not a very good movie, very bad movie, nonsensical.
Most disaster movies are, however, one exception though, and I was shocked how good this movie was. Have you ever seen the movie Earthquake?
No, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Holy shit! I want to say it's from like the late 70s, and it is the epitome of, like, everything just keeps getting worse, but in the best way possible. It's such a good disaster movie, and I didn't think I was going to be on the edge of my seat, but I was. Like, it was exceptionally well done.
Interesting.
Because like every time the characters get a breather, something else bad happens. You're like, oh, come on. But I imagine that's how natural disasters. But I imagine that's how living through an actual, like, big, large scale natural disaster feels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of a theme with mine, where I discovered I like end of the world stories where it feels like, yeah, this is probably how we would respond to this. Like, this is how this would happen, and yeah, I enjoy that. It adds a level of realism to it, where like, as a movie guy, I'm not cynically like, wow, he's the main character, so obviously he's gonna make it to the end. Like, I enjoy that, where you're on the edge of your seat, and you're never quite sure. I enjoy those kind of movies.
So if you're okay, I'm gonna throw in a rapid fire that's a television series.
Yeah,
that
go for it, man.
The theme. So there's an anime series called Saikano that. Shame on them for marketing it the way they did, because it looks like an adventure series. It is not. It is the literal end of the world, and just when you think things can't get any worse, they get worse at every fucking turn. And spoiler alert, everyone dies, but it doesn't matter, because the whole thing's a goddamn downer from start to finish. It's very depressing, but it's beautifully animated, and it's worth seeing. I'm saying it's very good. But you think it's just this cute little love story, and then by the end you're just like, oh, good, it's finally over.
Oh, it's one of those. It's like,
But like for the characters, you're like, everyone's dead, but at least they're done suffering. Like,
one of those,
Nothing
like,
more can happen to them.
exactly.
they're safe.
It's just a
the
downer,
credits are
man.
the credits are happening. You're safe now. The show can't hurt you anymore.
Basically, yeah. It's really good though. I was shocked, and I actually, my roommate at the time, about a year after I discovered it, because I bought it on, I don't have it anymore, but I used to have it on DVD. And actually, I think that motherfucker still has it because he loved it. Like, he fell in love with the series. Because I randomly showed it to him, and he was like, "Hey, wasn't that a preview on one of the other movies you had me watch?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have it if you want to watch it." And he watched it, and he just became like enthralled by it, obsessed.
Interesting.
It was one of his favorite series ever. But he liked that really depressing shit. Like, he wasn't a mental case or anything. He just liked those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
So he was raving about Psychono for like months after it.
Huh. How many
Interesting.
episodes is it?
It's not very long. I think it's like 12 or 13 episodes.
Oh, that's pretty digestible.
okay.
Like 20 minute episodes.
I think they. I can't remember honestly.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to check that. Actually, I mean, yeah. Sometimes you need something that's like emotionally like destroys you. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. There's just those times where like,
I
I need
understand.
to feel sad.
I understand that, and for a long time I thought I was like the only fucker. But yeah, it's a thing. Human beings need catharsis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
We need to experience those negative emotions in a way that's safe, and through these kinds of stories, it's a way to do that.
Exactly.
And it makes us appreciate the joy more.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. There's another. I guess it's kind of an end of the world movie that. It's not an end of the world movie, but it's a really like it's a historical movie. It's called Flowers of War, but I'll include it because to those people it was the end of the world as they know it. This is a movie I've only seen twice. The first time I watched it, I had to take a break. Well, actually, I had to take a break both times. The first time I watched it because I love like historical movies, and this one's set during Nanking when the Japanese invaded. So if you know, you know.
I think I know.
Watching it the first, yeah. But anyway, I'm watching it, and it's a very, very good movie. But I will tell you this: if you have any history of any kind of assault, don't watch it by yourself. Watch it with somebody that you know, love, and trust. And don't feel ashamed if you need to pause it and take a break because it is rough. Both times I watched it, I cried multiple times, and it's another movie that where just when you think things can't get any worse, it gets fucking worse. The ending will break you. Like,
Oof.
it will fucking break you. If you're not broken and feel like humanity doesn't deserve to live, at least for a little while, after you're done with this movie, there's something wrong with you. Like, you're a psychopath.
Oh man, yeah.
It's
that
rough.
Other way.
But I know I always make it sound like I'm saying don't watch it. Absolutely watch it, but I'll be honest, you'll probably only watch it once. The only reason I watched it a second time was because I wanted it fresh in my mind because I was doing a reaction video for something else. And that was my counterpoint to basically be like, no, there were so I was doing a reaction video to something that Take did where they were talking about the stereotype of the sexist Asian male protagonist. And I was like, no, there are absolutely movies that don't do that, and you're being a little unfair. And that was one of the ones that I pointed out because they were critiquing the white savior trope. And like, okay, so this movie's based upon something that actually happened in Nanking. Now, the original woman was an American, but she was a woman, and they put Christian Bale in as the lead character to take her spot. But I don't really understand. I do get why they did it because they needed a love story, even though it's horribly depressing. But so I wouldn't have done it, but I get why they did it. But I was like, no, this movie is not a white. It's not a white savior trope if the shit actually happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if the person who saved a bunch of people was actually white, then that's not a white savior trope. That's just history. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's true.
And I make the argument that Christian Bale is not the hero of that story. He's not. There's another character that's the hero. Actually, there's multiple heroes to that story, none of which are white. Like, but anyway, so I needed to watch the movie, and once again I'm watching it, and I had to take a fucking break because I knew what was coming.
Wow.
And I'm just like, God damn it.
Oh man, yeah. Oh,
It's depressing
man.
as shit.
That sounds harrowing.
Intense.
That sounds harrowing.
And just Well, and just the fact because what you see on screen, it may not have happened to like literally those people, but it happened to people. So it's like it's very historically authentic, meaning that everything you see on screen happened to someone, and a lot of the events actually did happen to the people in question. So, or at least some amalgamation of real people that actually existed.
Remind me, what's the name of it again?
It's called Flowers of War. It's based on a novel. It's based on a novel about what is her name? So there was basically a school that was part of the protected zone, and a lot of different people, including a Nazi, fun fact, went out of their way to save as many Chinese people as they possibly could from the Japanese Imperial Army, and a lot of times some really
definitely what sorry I'm trying to like work out what it's definitely what I'm thinking of. Sorry I had a
so you know it's definitely what you're thinking of. It's worse than you think.
I'm sure it
like
is.
It's way worse than you think. But at the same time, the movie, I wouldn't call the movie gratuitous because it's showing you what happened. It's not going out of its way to be over the top. It's driving home the fact that no, this shit happened and nobody fucking paid for it.
That event is why in Godzilla -1, when that movie's like, oh, the Japanese losing the war is a bad thing, I go, that perspective is maybe not necessarily the correct one.
That's also
they did some bad things in the war, guys.
Yeah, so that's also the only thing I didn't like about the movie Midway is at the very end when they dedicated the film to the American and Japanese Navy personnel, and I was like, no. There was clearly in that particular conflict, there was clearly a good side and there was clearly a bad side. There wasn't a lot of gray area there.
Yeah, no, there's not. No, sorry guys, sorry. I'm so
and I have
sorry.
to, and I always have to reinforce this has zero reflection on the Japan of today. I'm speaking exclusively of the Japanese military. In the case of Flowers of War, the Japanese army that was invading China in the 1930s.
It's indisputable. They did bad stuff.
They absolutely did it.
Without going into details.
Then, it's just like, Jesus, the numbers are staggering.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's... I see some of those numbers and I'm like, when did they sleep?
Yeah.
The scale is...
I watched a documentary about it like a while back, and it was like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, yeah.
I remember I watched one, and they were like, yes, there are pictures. No, I'm not going to show them to you.
No, I'm good. I'm good, thank you. So Jordan, what's your next rapid fire? He awkwardly changed the subject.
I can have two more. Do you have one more?
I've got one more.
Okay, then I'll just do one more.
Okay.
My last one then is going to be Mad Max Fury Road. To tie it back into a subject I hear that you guys were talking about on another podcast.
Yeah, we never got to get to Mad Max Fury Road because our Mad Max was mad about the first two Mad Maxes.
Well, to be fair, I told him this. I said, I've never seen any of the Mad Max movies. You're on your own. He was like, just watch one. I'm like, I really don't want to, nor do I have time. I got about halfway through the first one, and I'm like, no, this is not made for me.
So have you seen Fury Road?
No.
No, you haven't seen Fury. Okay, I thought you had seen Fury Road and that you had not liked it. That's interesting.
Max had watched Fury Road and didn't like it.
Oh, interesting.
Justin and I have different opinions on the matter. We both agree that like in terms of special effects and like the technical side of things, it's impressive. Like there's no doubting that.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that the characters are about as interesting as wet cardboard. And I'm of the opinion that the environments, because it takes place in a desert, it's very dull. Very, very dull. I used to hate it with a passion, like with a very, very deep passion, and it upset me, and it left me like foaming at the mouth hatred. Now I've kind of softened a little bit and don't hate it quite to that degree, but I still don't like it.
I'm I'm always just impressed. Like, a thing that makes me when I watch a thing, I'm like, if you've seen clips of the movie, you're like, yeah, man, they did that. They went out to an Australian desert and they did that, and that's impressive.
Still boring.
It's still boring, but it's impressive.
It's like they went out to a desert and shot Lawrence of Arabia, but still boring.
Boring.
I will say I did call that movie boring, but there are some legitimately impressive shots in that movie.
There are, and as somebody, I tried so hard to like Lawrence of Arabia, but I'm just like, this movie is way too fucking long. If this movie were if it were half the runtime, it would probably be a really good movie.
My thing with that movie, it taught me that, man, camels sure are just like resilient, like easygoing animals. Like, my favorite shot in that movie is the one where it's all of the extras are all sitting there with the camels, and it's this really long wide. It's really cool and spectacular looking. Where you're like, yeah, man, the amount of coordination that would have involved to be like, okay, camels are all good. Oh, there's one in the back who just won't sit down, man.
There's one in the back who just took a shit.
Yeah. Just the amount of, like, nowadays you would just CGI in like the 50 camels.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but now they would just do 50 terrible looking CGI camels, which I have something to say in my book report as well on that. But I digress.
Call it a day. But Jordan, do you have anything further to say about Mad Max Fury Road?
I mean, other than the internet might hate me for this, but I just don't think that it deserves all the praise that it got.
I mean, I will give it special effects.
I just don't.
I will give it special
effects. It's the lasagna of the Mad Max universe.
Yeah, some people like it, some people don't.
It's the lasagna of the apocalyptic movie universe. I'm gonna go that far.
Oh snap!
Okay, so I have a question in regards to Mad Max, and this is a legitimate question. Where are they getting the fuel for all these vehicles?
I have no idea.
That's kind of the thing too, where it's like they very much in that. I've only seen Mad Max Fury Road, so I can only judge that one. But like in that movie, they are very much like, yeah, fuel is like gone. Like, that's kind of why the world fell apart, is because there is no fuel.
The trucks are still moving.
Yeah, but they have enough gas for a protracted chase sequence.
For a long chase movie. Like, I don't get it, man.
In movie time, a very long time.
It's supposed to be like at least a week in movie time. I think it's supposed to be at least a week.
Something like that. But yeah, you can appreciate
continuous car chase.
You can appreciate
and not only continuous car chase, but they have the scene with the guy who's playing guitar who's belching out flames behind him. That has to be burning a lot of gas.
I mean, it looks cool, but it seems wasteful. No, it's legit fire. It's gigantic flames.
No, I mean the fuel source.
Oh no, because they say in the movie that life is measured by gasoline, and there's a Mad Max video game. That's the same idea. Life is measured in gasoline and water. That's that's their resource in terms of like value. Yeah, it's weird. Okay. It's very confusing. Very confusing universe. I haven't seen the first three, so I don't know.
And yet they have enough to waste to burn. I guess the idea is supposed to be that the reason why they have so much is because the leader that they're working with is a dictator who hoards it all, and so he has like mass collection of it. Maybe?
I don't know. Someone who's a Mad Max.
Also, America's in Mad Max Fury Road.
No, it takes place in Australia. It very much takes place in Australia.
I know. I'm thinking.
That's the one thing about. So in the future, Australia is the imperialist center of the world. Apparently, that was a joke. That was a joke.
I knew those fuckers were up to no good.
They're. So my final
with their kangaroos.
See, they get you in there with the friendly sounding accent, and they say, "Look, wallabies."
And then they're like, "Look, we got Steve Irwin. He's pretty chill." And you're like, "I mean, he is pretty chill."
He is pretty chill.
So my final rapid fire is
crikey! I had no idea they were all fucking fascists.
He's like,
I mean, to be fair, they weren't when he was around.
I mean,
this is true. That's what started. That was the catalyst for the Mad Max universe when Steve Irwin was taken from us far too early. That's when everybody was like, you know what? Fuck Australia.
He was like, don't have the Stingray. Don't blame the Stingray. Is what he said as he died.
It makes sense.
It's on record. He was like, don't blame the Stingray. Anyway, my last rapid fire is The Book of Eli with Denzel Washington.
hated that fucking movie.
Good. Now, before I dive
That
into
was so stupid.
before I dive into all the reasons
It's
why
been
this
so
movie is
long
bad,
since I've seen that one.
would the degree to which I make fun of this movie will depend on your answer to the following question: how religious do you consider yourself?
Not very, although I do enjoy examining and reading, and I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm like a devout atheist, but I definitely have zero respect for the King James Bible.
So like from an academic standpoint, we sort of seem to share a similar perspective. So would you say that the notion that this movie presents that, okay, I'm going to put this a different way. I missed the fact that it was the Bible the first time I watched this movie, and I literally thought it was a magic book. I thought the reveal at the end of the movie was that he had a magic book, and I was ultimately so disappointed when the reveal was he just had a Bible. Because that's just kind of, I was like, oh, it's just a Bible. Like, that's kind of how I understand.
Well, no, that's the twist at the end when he says he's in possession of a King James Bible, but he's memorized it.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, the idea that like Gary Coleman is like, we're going to use the Bible to take over the world 30 years removed from a point where most people would probably be like, God was noticeably absent for the apocalypse. I don't know that I'm going to ascribe to the words of this book that doesn't really seem to have any meaning to people who can't read. Like,
see, so I can argue from the religious perspective on that. It's like, no, God wasn't absent. Humans killed themselves. Is the argument one could make.
I mean, one could, but then I would retort with, but then wouldn't God want to save us? Why would he let us?
Assuming that in most Christians, whether they admit it or not, particularly Catholics, do ascribe to the concept of free will, which means whether or not you're a true like deist or not, if you believe in free will, you believe that you're essentially on your own, and that through the gift of free will, God will not intervene directly upon your behalf. So if humans kill the planet, then that's what. Now, see, the problem though is people like to, and this is my problem with Christianity in the non-ecumenical or academic sense, is people like to fair weather play with the rules. So it's like, if you believe in free will, then the deal you have made in the concept of free will is that your shit is your shit. But people like to believe that, oh, well, God will intervene on my behalf, which is why people pray before football games, right? It's like
that's it. That's
no.
True.
If fate and free will are two things that are either absolute or not. It's one or the other. You can't really have a middle ground. Now there are some people who have this thing where it's like there are predetermined lines, but you can make some choices, and I don't like that because just the concept of destiny and free will to me are so absolute that I don't think you have a middle ground there. But it does make multiverse theory more fun.
Yeah, it does. So okay.
I generally have to abstain from the conversation of religion because I'm not capable of being nice about it.
And it's funny though because I actually have this sitting here because it has to do with one of my book reports, just in case I need to. Because the first opening credits of my book report, I said, "That's not fucking right."
That's fun. So here's what I'll say about Book of Eli. Number one, it is the most boring looking. The sepia tone, man. I don't know what filmmaker decided that sepia tone was cool, but it makes your movie look boring and dull and awful and just.
They're going for desert. But fun fact, I went and watched the movie Sight yesterday, which, in my defense, I didn't know it was a. It's not PureFlix. I didn't know it was Angel Studios until I was in the theater. And I actually put it together because I'm like, there's a lot of trailers for Angel Studios movies in here. And then it comes up at the beginning, Angel. I'm like, shit. Okay. It's about a doctor who immigrated from China. And every time they have a flashback to China, they play this, like, I forget what the instrument is called, but it's basically like music you would hear at a Chinese restaurant. And I'm like, I don't think they're trying to be racist, but this is coming off really fucking racist. Like, every time they transition to China, they play the same, like, musical element. And I'm just like, you don't have to do that. You can just put the text scroll down below that says they're in China. And it's the same song. Yeah, and they do it a lot.
So what didn't you like about the Book of Eli? Like you say, you made the face, so I assume you didn't like it. What was your?
Because the movie doesn't have enough meat on its own other than the mystery, and the mystery is only kind of interesting. Like, so it's basically a lot of action that doesn't really mean anything, and then the ending just ruins it for you because it's like the book the whole time. Like, it's not a book that walks you through how to create like a reverse osmosis machine, which would be a miracle book, right?
Yeah, it's just
or it's not. It's not internal. It's not internal combustion engines for dummies. It's the King, and not only is it the Bible, it's the King James Bible, which out of all versions of the Bible ever made is the worst translated one in history.
I actually know that.
it's the worst one to hang on to.
Yeah.
At all.
Like, I understand holding onto the Bible for academic reasons. I absolutely get it.
Sure, absolutely. But the King James Bible?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the one thing I swear to God, the version of it I watched was like a different version of it, because the number one thing I remember about it is, and I really didn't like it this time, was I resent the notion that after the apocalypse humans just like devolve to violence and like are either psychopathic, will eat each other, or will violate each other. Like, I don't know. So it's just like, I just remember there's this scene at the end where there's this like really poignant moment of like this tight close-up shot of Gary Oldman's face as he's looking like introspectively off into the distance, and clearly in the background you can see this poor woman being assaulted, and it's just the most distracting thing. It pulls focus so hard, and it's all I could remember about this movie. And then I watched it this time, and that sequence of the girl being assaulted in the background is now completely blurred out. And, like, you can't see it anymore.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I wonder if they edited this for the DVD version, because I distinctly remember that. Because I remember being like, man, that's total whiplash. But yeah, just
see, my only real memories of the Book of Eli movie is the scene where you see the overpass and just us being in the theater and being like, hey, it's like the Fallout overpass. This is like the Fallout movie, even though it had nothing to do with Fallout and really wasn't similar in any way.
Yeah, no, our friend was like, the first time we saw a trailer, it's just the opening scene where it's like the desolate, and you see the gas mask and you see him kill the thing with the bow and arrow. That was the first trailer, and our friend went, yeah, this looks like Fallout. So it makes me laugh that the Fallout show is this bright, colorful, like, really upbeat-looking show, because it's like, yeah, our idea of a Fallout movie was very different back then. But anyway, that's Book of Eli. With that, you know what, Jake, since you're our guest,
hadn't seen, and I always just kind of put it off, because I didn't really want to watch it other than morbid curiosity, but I watched Noah.
Oh, interesting.
Starring Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Hold your thoughts on that, because
boy.
I have many.
This movie sucks. Like, it's so bad.
Okay, hold on to your thoughts on that for a second, because oh my goodness, I have thoughts on that. But we're gonna start off with the ones you had seen. So the one you had seen first, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, the one I had seen is a little gem called "Seeking a Friend for the End of the World."
Oh, I've heard of it. I've heard of it. Is it? I've heard good things. Is it good? Tell me it's good.
It's kind of like Flowers of War in the sense that I've only seen it once. I only watched it once. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's way different than you think it's going to be. The ending made me cry like a child.
Interesting.
It's really good. And the point I made earlier, there's a few scenes where, like, there's one scene where they go to a diner and people are just like people are still working at the diner, but they're just doing it to be nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah, well, I figure if we can spread some joy before it all ends, right? Blah, 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 blah. Mm. And it's like and they make a point of saying, like, yeah, most people are staying with their families, but some people don't have anyone or anywhere to go. So we're keeping it open. And it's kind of like, you see the best and worst of humanity in it, much like I think you would in the literal end of the world.
Yeah.
And then the one thing, so I'm an animal guy, and there's a scene where they pick up a dog, and they name the dog Sorry because it has a sign tied to its neck that says sorry on it, because like somebody dumped their dog. I think that person's a piece of shit. But yeah, so they call the dog Sorry for the duration of the movie. But yeah, so that was the first moment where I was like, I fucking hate people. But then the end is it's really good but really sad at the same time. It's just like you said, Justin, that's a movie where if you need to get yourself inspired for a good cry, watch that one. It'll do the trick.
Man, you picked some bummers for your end of the world. No optimism.
I have an odd fascination with tragedies as a genre. And sometimes, yeah, you just need that cathartic. I can't explain it, but there are some times where it's just like you said. Like, I don't want to feel sad, but I want to. It's almost like a purge.
Yeah.
Like, you just need to purge and the best way to do that is to watch something that brings the feelings out, and then you can process and deal with them, and then they go away again. And
oh, for sure. I mean,
yeah.
look, I'm like saying. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, in hindsight, I should have brought up Purge because I love those movies and I shouldn't. But anyway, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. That's
interesting. I've heard good things about it. Is that a Netflix joint? I feel like that's a Netflix joint.
I don't know. It wasn't produced by them, but
no?
Let's see. Where can you watch?
Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie then. But
you might be thinking of Don't Look Up.
I definitely did make me think of Don't Look Up. That movie was interesting.
Oh, this is unfortunate. So it's apparently not streaming anywhere. So you can rent it, but apparently it's not streaming anywhere. But I'm sure there are sites frequented by the likes of Captain Jack Sparrow. Wink, wink, hint.
I mean, if one wanted to, they could. But cool, that's good to know.
Time to sail the seas.
Jordan, what is your one that you had seen?
My first one that I have seen is not a bummer and is going in a completely different direction. It's Chicken Little. Because I like to try and pick ones that kind of break the mold a little bit. And when you said it's the end of the world as we know it and I feel fine, this was like immediately the first thing that popped into my head. It's from 2005. It's in terms of animation quality, it's very funny because as I was watching this, I said to myself, man, it's amazing how the quality of what used to be a feature film is now like what the quality of like a Netflix animated show would be. So like a Kung Fu Panda show or like the How to Train Your Dragon or any like those, or like the Megamind one. Like, now when I see that new Megamind movie, it bothers me because it looks bad and the quality is bad. But if it had been 2005, I would have been like, you know what? This looks good and normal. And I'm excited to be a part of this.
You absolutely wouldn't have. When Chicken Little came out, Disney was in a bad way. Sorry,
probably not, but you know. So for those who haven't seen Chicken Little, the sky is falling. We end up finding out that it's aliens. Aliens come down and are ending their world as they know it. But Chicken Little feels fine because he knows that he has their baby, and if he returns it to them, things are probably going to end up okay. It's cute. It's simple. It's fun. I don't have a whole lot to say about it because it's a pretty standard family fun film. But
because you did it for the one joke, and you got about 10 minutes into it, and you were like, "Shit, there's nothing to say about this. Nothing of a movie."
Pretty much, but I was, pretty stuck with it at that point. So we're riding this out.
Yeah, Chicken Little always just makes me think of the Henny Penny episode of The Golden Girls.
What's funny is I think there's a character in the movie which is called Henny Penny, which is one of the background characters.
Yeah, that's where the name comes from. That it comes from the Chicken Little story.
Yeah.
But yeah, Disney was in a bad way when that movie came out. That was whenever anyone, me and Joe were talking about this the other day, but whenever anyone's like Disney's dying, I'm like, yeah, Chicken Little happened. It's like it's a short walk from Chicken Little to Barnyard Adventures. Barnyard Adventures is pretty much the lowest they hit during this era. Jordan, do you have anything else to say about Chicken Little?
I mean, other than the fact that it had a budget of $150 million, which kind of blows my mind that it had that high of a budget.
Pretty sure it was a massive bomb.
It had a box office of $314.4 million.
Oh, all right then.
Not as bad as I would have thought.
Yeah, no. That is not a popular movie in the zeitgeist. Nobody's talking about. Zach Braff said we're gonna make Chicken Little 2, and everyone went, "Why?"
More how? The way that it ends is there's not really room for a sequel.
Right.
But that's Chicken Little. That's really all I have to say about that. What's your first one, Justin? When our Guest comes back.
We'll go. Oh, he's back. He's back. Okay.
That fella's like dying over here.
It's all good. It's all good. So for my first one, it's The Day the Earth Stood Still with Keanu Reeves. Have you seen The Day the Earth Stood with Keanu Reeves, Jake?
A long time ago. Very long time ago.
So remember how I mentioned that period of time where I worked at the movie theater, and we watched like everything. So there's just certain movies where I know I've seen them because, for those who have never worked at a movie theater, part of working in a movie theater is doing theater checks. So you just see certain parts of certain movies like 100 times, and so I've seen parts of this movie in various iterations a ton. So like I knew I had watched it, but I didn't like remember a thing about it, and I was surprised by how realistic it was on what it would be like if aliens showed up. It's like Keanu Reeves shows up as the alien, and they just pretty much immediately shoot him. It's just like, yeah, that's pretty much we maybe wouldn't approach this with the most soft touch, and from that point, Keanu Reeves determines that humanity sucks, and in order for the Earth to survive, humanity need not be here. And the movie kind of becomes about convincing Keanu Reeves that humans can like learn and be better. And it's during that period of time where we thought Keanu Reeves was a bad actor, before he did John Wick and we all realized we loved him.
Sorry, Justin. Part of your Broadway World podcast says, I hate Chicken Little. It's a terrible movie. Which, I mean, you're not wrong.
Valid.
It's not the greatest of movies.
Valid. It's valid.
I'm not gonna
But everybody's got those movies that for whatever reason, and you can acknowledge they're bad.
Yeah,
I've got a
absolutely.
few. But you just love them for some reason.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to fight you on this one.
No, I won't. I will not fight you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's plenty of movies. Like, I can't think of one now, but believe me, they're out there. And like, I acknowledge they're dog shit. They are not good. But I love them.
It bothers me when people when I say like, oh, that's a bad movie, and they take it as like a personal attack. It's like, no, you can still like it, but
I've always said that like there's good, bad, and then there's genuinely bad.
Yeah.
So like if a movie is good, bad, like yeah, there are elements of it that are bad, but it's still entertaining. Like there's still like fun to be had with it.
Yeah.
Whereas,
well, and then the opposite is true because I brought up Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia is a great movie. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
And then there's bad, where it's like it's a genuinely bad movie. There's nothing technically good about it. Characters are bad. It's just bad.
It's a bad
There's very
movie.
There's very few movies that I find fall into that category. There's usually something to be liked about it, like a movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I had to say about The Day the Earth Stood Still. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I like a realistic take on aliens. I kind of discover like a Steven Spielberg movie where it's like E.T. or Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where it's like they've developed the technology to travel across space, but yet can't talk to us. Like it's just like unrealistic.
Part of your Broadway World says, I will never love it, Jake. Never. You can't make me. Laughy, cryy emoji.
That is not a hill I would even stand my ground on, much less
die on.
The people that are standing on the "You must love Chicken Little" hill, I'm just like, nah. I'm like the guy in Braveheart who's like, I'm not dying for these bastards. Let's go home.
Yeah, Chicken Little, ash heap of history. Be gone. That's the answer, Jordan. What is your final had scene that you had seen?
Well, okay. So here's the question, Jake. Does the sentence "so long and thanks for all the fish" mean anything to you?
No.
No.
I feel like it should though.
Then I'm gonna give the game away, because Justin knows. It's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
God damn it! See, yes, okay, yes.
I love it.
Oh, all of my friends are so ashamed of me right now for.
I love that movie. The book is fun. So a lot of times when I do the movies that are based on books. I try to listen to the audiobooks because I have a lot of them. I didn't in this case because I didn't think of this one until way too late in the week to get it done. But I love this movie. It's fun. It's silly. It has a lot of my kind of sense of humor in it.
I'm still the smart ass who when anyone ever asks either a really complicated question or literally what's the meaning of the universe or life, and I always just say 42.
42.
42.
Everyone
I
knows
guess
it's 42.
I guess if I wanted to give another hint, that was one I should have asked, but oh well.
I love doing that because it's so rare that someone gets the joke and they just look at you like, "Are you stupid?" And I'm like, "No, you are."
And in terms of like casting, Martin Freeman as Arthur Dent is just impeccable. It's just like,
I mean, there's a lot of the casting choices that I love in it. Martin Freeman as Arthur is great. I love Alan Rickman as Marvin,
so good.
like the robot. So good. Alan Rickman, so great.
All right.
Bill Nye as Slarty Bartfast is pretty good. There's a lot. Zoe Deschanel, I'm not gonna lie. She's cute, and I kind of just love her.
I mean,
She's adorable.
always loving a Sam Rockwell performance. It's like never have seen it bad.
Yeah, she's adorable until you watch 500 Days of Summer, and then you start to dislike her a bit.
Okay,
which is not fair. It's not fair though because she does such a good job in the role. But I just couldn't help it. I'm just like, because Joey Gordon-Levitt's my guy. Like, you know,
I mean,
you don't break Joey Gordon-Levitt's heart.
He's your
That's
guy.
why I find Scarlett. Yeah, I find Scarlett Johansson. I've been a Joey Gordon-Levitt fan since the original run of Third Rock from the Sun.
I was gonna say he's your guy until Don John, and you're like, ooh.
I love that movie.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I won't make fun of it.
I love that movie. No, make fun of it. I mean, fuck. No, I think John.
So weird. Such a weird choice.
It is. How do I say this? Okay, so I'm. Don't judge what I'm about to say until I'm done because I'm probably gonna have to rephrase it. So I had a bit of a Don John moment in my life, not even close to the same way, but in the sense that like he ended up getting involved with somebody that you never would have thought in any way, shape, or form, and because of that relationship, it shifted his perspective entirely.
Gotcha.
And it's a very, very and what's so illuminating about that kind of experience though is it's not what you thought would be like your dream person or your dream girl or your dream guy or whatever, but it's way more impactful than you could ever imagine it would be, but it's different than you thought it would be. So sometimes it kind of feels a little surreal. But when you take a step back and look at it, though, it's like this is the greatest thing that could have ever possibly happened, and I didn't see it coming in this way, in any way, shape, or form. And I love the end, how there's a little moment where they're sitting on her stoop, right? And he's just kind of like, he's not annoyed, but he also doesn't really know what to do because she's having a meltdown because of her PTSD from losing her family for those times. So it's not like an unreasonable meltdown. It's things that happen with people that have suffered legitimate trauma, because in the movie she lost her husband and child. So he's just kind of sitting there like he doesn't really know what to do, but at the same time he's not like, fuck this, I'm out. And it's such a really subtle bit of acting from Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That whole movie is really kind of a treatment of how to be like an actor, director, producer all in one role, and you can tell he put a lot of his heart and soul into it. It's a really good movie, but like you said, Justin, it's odd, especially on first watch, because it's not what you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, we I don't know what prompted us to watch that in theaters, but we absolutely watched that in theaters. I don't remember why. I just remember being like, this is a very odd movie. But I was at that beginning of my stages of being into odd movies, so I was very into odd movies.
I also love when he goes to confession, though, and he's like real proud because he's like, I didn't jerk off at all, you know, and he gets the same like penance, and he was like, are you sure? It feels like it should be different.
So with that, I think I got one more.
Yeah, nice segue.
With that, Jordan, do you have anything to say about whatever
I do have,
was?
I do have one interesting thing to say about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, which I just found out thanks to the help of Wikipedia. Simon Jones, who portrayed Arthur Dent in both the BBC radio and BBC television adaptations of Hitchhikers, makes a cameo appearance as the ghostly image.
Oh, interesting.
I don't remember which character that is, but he's in there, and that's kind of a cool little bit of trivia.
That is pretty neat.
Other than that, no, not really. I could say that it had a budget of 45 to 50 million and made 104.5 million at the box office.
Oh, so it did okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
That's kind of surprising considering the people who would have been interested in that movie would have presumably been people who read the book. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like it was a popular book, but it wasn't like...
Like the most.
I remember that movie not
Yeah.
doing well, which is why they've never made a sequel. Because I've always wanted a sequel. Because that series gets weird in its latter half.
Oh,
In
the
a
series
good
gets
way.
very
It's
weird.
a risky thing to adapt for sure, but
It's a weird one. Like in terms of I'm honestly kind of surprised that it got made in the first place. But
you
I'm
could say
glad
the
it
same thing
did.
about Lord of the Rings before they made it.
That is so true.
true,
That is
very
so
true.
That is so true.
Because they were people that said, and I didn't 100% agree, but I understood where they were coming from. There were people who saying you cannot do a live action adaptation of the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah, it'll never
and then
work.
Peter Jackson said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in terms of that, he does a very good job considering it's a dense book and he cuts out an entire character and a big portion of the book.
Yeah.
Um,
And I get it though, because Tolkien, don't get me, as somebody who loves Tolkien and his works, there are things that just don't translate to the screen.
oh,
Cough.
absolutely.
Tom
Absolutely.
Bombadil cough.
That's the person I was thinking of.
That
Yeah,
guy?
and there are elements that are changed, like just for general runtime, because it's like, and all the Tolkien nerds know this, like they don't actually meet up with Merry and Pippin that soon. There's so many other changes.
There's a lot of changes.
Yeah, there's a ton. It's just I don't know that you could have done it better though. Honestly,
No.
It would be hard, honestly, and this is kind of a thing that I've brought this up on the podcast before that I've kind of discovered. A lot of books that are really long like that they've adapted to movies. Now that we have the advent of like Disney Plus or Netflix or Amazon, I think a lot of them would work better as shows than they do as movies, because then you have the time, the real estate to get those chapters filled with Tom Bombadil done, as opposed to trying to squeeze it into a 2.5 or 3 hour long movie where you have to cut down like a 17 or 20 hour long book into 3 hours. Like,
see, I think. Well, I was. This is funny. I was about to say they should make the Silmarillion into a series, but they did.
And it was
They just did a
bad.
shitty job of it. Just honestly, just forget Rings of Power and just do the Silmarillion. Like you can do it. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. We'll just pretend like Rings of Power didn't. Or you can solve that the same way I think they should solve Star Wars. Have either Galadriel or Luke Skywalker just wake up from a dream and be like,
Oh shit, that happened.
"Glad that wasn't real."
Oh, The Hobbit also didn't happen for some reason.
that's great. I love that.
No, but in the case of Luke's, well, the movie adaptation, no, but the book is wonderful. But then in the Luke Skywalker version, you have Ben Solo, still played by Adam Driver, come in, but dressed in his Jedi garb. Comes in and he's like, "Master, are you okay?" And Luke just goes, "Ah!"
It's like, I was just about to stab you with my lightsaber. That was crazy. Could you imagine if that had happened?
That's funny. But yeah, that's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
So my final one,
Yeah.
my final one I had seen was I Am Legend. I Am Legend. We'll do it really quickly, and then we'll do the stuff we hadn't seen. The performance from Will Smith is incredible. I know he slapped his way out of a career, but man, that performance in that movie is insane. And the ending to the book is better.
I don't know. I think he can. I think Will Smith will survive it. But yes, you're right. The ending to the book is way better than the movie.
I think the book
also
generally is more interesting.
has to do with the title. It really is. And I didn't click how old this book actually is. This was published in the 50s.
Yeah, it's quite old, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, and my first giveaway before I figured that out was the fact that he refers to Muslims as Mohammed men.
Oh no.
Oh, boy.
yeah.
So-
Do it.
So I'm just kind of like, wow, never heard that term before. I know what it is, obviously, but
yeah, I think
you can infer from context. But
I think the vampires themselves are way more interesting in the book. Like the idea that they're basically regular humans and they just think he's this psychopath. I think is way more interesting.
that's why the ending's so great.
Yeah.
His realization at the end when it's so much better.
Yeah.
The movie's good though. Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the movie and I saw the movie before the book, but then I read the book and I was like, this is like way fucking better.
Yeah, it's just that conceptually, it's when I was watching it and I was reading about it, I'm like, again, a show. I wouldn't call it I Am Legend or necessarily, but a show with this concept I think would be interesting. And I like the twist that the girl is a vampire, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I like the Will Smith one. It's just this is more interesting to me, just conceptually.
I think they played it safe because unfortunately that was also during a period where Hollywood basically thought their audiences were stupid.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
For the most part, because they're like they're not gonna get it. I'm like, no, but this movie would be legendary.
Yeah.
If you had gone with the original story, because the twist when, like you said, the twist when you find out the woman is a vampire, you're like, wait a minute, I thought they were all mindless. So my first thought when I was reading it was like, okay, maybe they're coming out of it, but then it turns out they're just evolving.
Yeah, and it's just like them being kind of mindless in the Will Smith one. It's like it just doesn't have the same impact. Like I get the idea that they're tribal, like it's supposed to indicate that they're evolving, but I don't know. It's just not as effective as like, oh no, they're basically human. And yeah, he's just they think he's a psychopath.
And he's a psychopath who's just hunting them down.
Yeah, he's like the boogeyman who comes out at night. Like to me it's just way more.
Well, what it does is it turns the monster trope on its face, and that's why it's a very effective ending, because it's like, oh no, they're not monsters. He's the monster.
He's the monster. Yeah, and I also just don't love the fact that they're building a sequel off of not the actual ending. I don't know why. I don't know why it bothers me. It does. It bothers me.
It bothers me.
It doesn't. It bothers me. It bothers me a ton.
Bothers me.
So
starting again.
With that, let's talk about some stuff we hadn't seen, guys. Jake, you had started to say you hadn't seen Noah. I got some shit to talk about Noah. I would love to bash Noah.
Oh. I wish I hadn't watched Noah. So here's the thing. This is what I came away with after watching Noah. I said, hold on. The real reason I hate this movie is because I'm familiar with the Noah story from the Bible. So I thought to myself, I said, if this was presented as just like a sci-fi fantasy epic story,
yeah,
it's not nearly as bad. But it's because I know the story and I know where they're getting like everything wrong.
Yeah.
But purposefully. It's not like they didn't know, because I mean it's literally written down in the most influential book ever written in the history of mankind. So it's not hard to find. But like they created a character that didn't exist. They make Noah the world's biggest asshole for no reason.
Okay.
No reason.
Let me offer an alternative perspective. So okay. My favorite moment in this movie is not in the movie itself, but when we watched it for the first time, and two old ladies sat in front of us, and they uttered the words "stone angels," and they both looked at each other and went "nope," and got up and left. I will never forget it. It was so funny.
I had a similar reaction. I'm just like, well, because when they said Cain, and like, it'd been a minute since I went through and read Genesis, but I'm like, I don't think Cain went and hung out with a bunch of angels. That doesn't sound... So that's when I grabbed my Bible and I read it, and I'm like, nope. Nope. This did not happen. This did not happen in the story.
Talk about loving movies because they're bad. I love this movie because it's bad. Like, I love the insane rock angels, and I love how Noah's just a psychopath for the back. He's like, I'm gonna stab that baby. Just you wait. I'm gonna stab that baby. But that's what I'm saying.
If you take away the biblical context, though, and one thing I did like is that they never said the word God. They always said the Creator, which I imagine, again, if you put this on like another planet in a fantasy setting and eliminate, like, if you could erase my knowledge of the Bible and show me this movie, I probably would have liked it quite a bit more. Because I'm like, I can wrap my head around this if I don't have the prior knowledge of, because I mean, the plausibility of supernatural beings coming down to Earth and being punished to do it is not a foreign concept. It's just the fact that I'm familiar with the Book of Genesis, and I know that that is not what is in the Book of Genesis.
Fair,
secondly,
fair enough.
if you're going to start the movie by reciting essentially Genesis 1, you could at least recite Genesis 1 and not fuck it up.
Be accurate.
It's literally written for you, and it's in the public domain. You have no excuse. You don't need to change a word for copyright reasons.
I will say I did enjoy the idea of like, oh, does Noah actually talk to God, or is he just like mentally ill? Like I did enjoy that like idea of like the question of like he's saying some outlandish things here.
See, So that's the other thing that bothered me, is like God is ostensibly talking to Noah through visions, one of which is drug-induced from the tea, right? And I'm over here like, no, the Bible's pretty clear that God just says things to him.
Yeah.
Like, so again, if you're following Genesis, it's kind of like, I really like the way the Prince of Egypt did it because, fun fact, God speaks to Moses.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I didn't really care for that. And the whole, like, so the second half of the movie doesn't need to exist either. Like, this is just, like, once they get on the boat, that should be the end. But no, that's the fucking halfway point.
Right.
There's way more that happens. But the bulk of the ending is, like you said, the whole back and forth of, like, Noah, whether or not Noah's going to stab the baby. And I'm just like,
I'm going to stab that baby.
But here's the thing, and this is what, going back to the whole, like, is it predestined or not? So my thought is, though, if, like, it's established that God is all-powerful in this movie, right? So if God allowed a woman who was barren to get pregnant, my first thought would be like, oh, clearly this is what he had in mind.
That, right? You would think
it's a miracle.
Right? If it's
yeah,
you would think.
I'm just kind of, so maybe, like, it doesn't make God look particularly good in this movie.
No.
Like, it's like, yeah, I let this woman believe that she was never going to have children, so much so at one point she urges Noah to find a wife for the man she loves because she doesn't want him to not have children, allows her to have children, and then I'm going to have my prophet guy just stab them. Because no babies. It's like, this seems... I'm gonna stab
that baby.
But then it's like the whole movie he's like, I will do what he says no matter what. I will do what he says no matter what. And then he's like, I can't. I'm like, okay, so, I'm glad you came to that conclusion, but you could have come to that conclusion 9 months earlier when you found out she was pregnant. And plus Emma Watson's in it. So, fuck that movie.
And also Russell Crowe is just generally bad in it. That's...
Oh, and then not even to mention the fact that they're vegetarians.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Which makes... they never explicitly come out and say it, but they imply it heavily. Because it was like the armadillo dog thing. And I'm just like, you guys do realize that Abel, in the Bible, the first... second son of Adam and Eve, was a shepherd who raised sheep for the slaughter. At no point were they anti-killing animals, ever.
I guess
ever.
Because I guess because in the screenplay someone went, well, they can't have them eat the animals on the boat. That would be mean. Probably, if I had to guess.
Except for those of you who have read the good book, God commands Noah, and there are different versions, but God commands Noah. There's one point where he says 2 of each animal. There's another later on that says certain numbers, but I remember 7. So that's 2 of the animal plus 5 that can be sacrificed and or eaten.
Man, I
of the clean animals that are suitable. But yeah, so that's a fun fact. That would be why. So there's no point in that story where it says. However, there are points in the biblical story where it says that killing other people is wrong, and Noah wastes several people directly by his own hand, not to mention just letting people die. He actually kills a fair amount of people with his two bare hands.
I mean, he also threatens to stab the baby. I'm pretty sure that's a sin. I'm pretty sure God would generally disapprove of someone stabbing a baby.
I don't. Well, stabbing, yes, but I don't think threatening to stab is necessarily a sin.
Oh, well, all right then.
And keep in mind though, which just makes no sense because technically the law had not been written yet, so the world needing to be purged doesn't really make any sense because technically speaking, they haven't broken the law because the law hasn't been written yet.
Interesting.
But that's me questioning the Bible, which I know you're not supposed to do, but.
I mean, we question stuff around here. That's what we do. And we do it publicly.
Atheism.
Atheism. That. Well, I mean, look, if we're going full bore atheist. I believe that Jesus Christ Superstar is the most atheist movie ever constructed. I stand by that.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Do you watch Young Sheldon? Like at all?
I'm not finished it yet. I'm in season 3.
Okay, there's a bit, I don't know what season it's in, but there's a bit where you get to see where Meemaw finds out the rental history of all the people in town, and you see that one of.
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, well, there's a bit where you see that the top movie that Pastor Jeff has rented is Jesus Christ Superstar, which is mind-boggling to me because it is the most atheist movie I've ever watched. Like that's a pretty anti-Jesus movie if you're paying attention. Just putting that out there.
I mean, I don't know. It's not particularly friendly to King Herod either, but
no, not. It's a pretty pro Judas movie.
But it shouldn't have, because when you're talking about stabbing babies.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of your Broadway World podcast just says yes.
Exactly. I'm guessing she's agreeing with me with my take about Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah.
I'm guessing yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian Tim Minchin. But he had a really good point when he was playing Judas, where he was like, Judas is in a bad position because either free will exists and he's choosing to screw over his friend, or he has no free will. And
see, that is actually one of the things that I don't argue. I should say I discuss with people that are Christians. So I'm like, where do you stand on Judas then? Because if it weren't for Judas, it wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
They're like. I'm like, so Judas is technically a hero, and I still maintain that in the narrative of the scripture, Jesus knows what's going to happen and understands that Judas is playing his role. There's several instances throughout the Gospels where it's alluded to, well, and sometimes outright stated, that Jesus knows what's going to happen. Like he even says to Peter, you will deny me thrice, and, one of you will, sell me out, blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, Judas isn't a bad guy. Judas is fulfilling one of the most important parts of what needs to happen, and for the whole shebang to go down.
Yeah.
Part of your Broadway World says yes. Don't we make this point in the podcast episode we did, Justin?
I believe I did. I believe I did say it. I don't know if I specifically said that it was the most. Maybe I did. I honestly don't remember. I know we talked about Jesus Christ Superstar. I don't remember if I called it the. But I do believe that movie blew my mind when I watched it the first time with how pro Judas it was. I was like, it's really sympathetic to Judas, and like my whole like understanding of Judas is that he's pretty synonymous with betrayal, and he's like the most classic bad guy in all of like, so like to be like, oh, maybe he had a point.
At two Brutus.
Yeah. But
at two Judas.
With that, Jordan, what is the first movie you had seen?
First movie that I have not seen?
Yeah, you had not seen.
Armageddon with Bruce Willis.
Armageddon?
I had never seen Armageddon up until now.
Wait a minute. What year were you born?
91.
That might be why you didn't see Armageddon.
This came out in 98. I would have been math 7.
98?
Yeah, because when it came out, I was not old enough to watch it, but I watched it.
Oh, it's one of those movies.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean,
it's not that bad.
I mean, it's bad, but it's not that bad.
Part of your Broadway world said I was sitting there uncomfortable the entire time during that musical.
Oh, Jesus Christ Superstar. I can see why you would say that. It can be.
But Armageddon, it's definitely a Michael Bay movie, for better or worse, whatever that means to you.
It's definitely got Michael Bay logic, because only Michael Bay would assume that it would be easier to teach oil drillers to be astronauts,
right? Than astronauts
to be oil drillers. It's kind of like,
right. It's one of those movies where it's like you kind of have to squint at it the right way and let go of certain logic.
The funniest moment when I came out. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and it never occurred to them to put a crew of drillers and astronauts together.
Right, like intermingle a bit. That's all I'm saying. Intermingle. But no, the funniest moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched our video about the Michael Bay Transformers movies. Oh, did you lose me? Jordan? Can you guys see me?
We did briefly.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Good. Okay. In our video about Transformers, we talk about Michael Bay. We described a phenomenon that comes from a podcast, my favorite podcast, other than the ones on the network, The Weekly Planet. A phenomenon he described as Golden Bay time, which is the moment in the movie where you think it's about to end. You're like the storylines are coalescing. It seems like this is the climax, and then for some godforsaken reason, there's still 40 minutes left. So I came out.
Machine breaks.
Yeah. I came out, and he was like, he described his day. He's like, I got to about the hour point, and I pulled up the runtime to see how much time was left. Surely there's like 10 minutes left, and there was still like 40 minutes left. I'm like, you've entered Golden Bay time.
It was like they leave the planet, they go into space, and I'm like, okay, so like drilling into the asteroid, putting the bomb, and coming back to Earth. That's got to be like not very much time, like at most 30 minutes, right? And yeah, I pull up the time, and it's like it was I not even 40 minutes. I think it was still like an hour left at that point, and I'm like, how could they possibly stretch this out for that long? Like, it's not like it's bad or anything. It's just I just conceptually don't understand with what they have to accomplish in the movie how it takes that much runtime, and I think it honestly would have been stronger had they not make it be that long.
But that's Noah again, because theoretically the climax should be when they get on the boat.
Yep.
Yeah, you would think so.
But when they get on the boat, there's literally another hour and 20 minutes left. So I'm like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
And like it doesn't make any sense. And then I love how they basically come out and say, even though the Bible does not say it, not to get off topic, but the other thing I forgot to mention was they kind of hint at the fact that the two girls that are born on the boat end up becoming the wives for Noah's other sons.
Ooh.
So they literally just say, yep, this family's inbred, when even the Bible says that Noah's sons all had wives when they got on the ark.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of like, so 3 generations in, they're going to be like, we believe in God.
Oh, no. You're not wrong, though.
Some hills have eyes kind of shit going on.
I get that reference. Jordan, did you have anything else to say about Armageddon? He changed the subject awkwardly.
No, I don't. It's fine. It's if you like a Michael Bay movie where there's explosions and military and military and more military, then it's probably for you. It's definitely from the 90s.
I'm told people like his movies. I don't know. I've never liked one. No, that's not true. I like one of his movies, and that's Pain and Gain. Pain and Gain is the only Michael Bay movie I like. That movie is phenomenal.
The only other thing that I would say is it's always weird seeing Bruce Willis with hair. Like, I know at one point he had hair, and that was a thing that people just like lived with. But like for most of my life, he's been bald. And it's weird.
Like, it's kind of like when you look at old footage of Stone Cold Steve Austin and he had hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
This doesn't work. This does not work for me.
It doesn't feel right. He's bald. He's always been bald. He's supposed to be bald. He had hair? What?
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned Bruce Willis with hair, because that transitions lovely into my first one I hadn't seen, which was 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis.
All right.
Have either of you seen 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis?
I
again
don't think
a
so.
while back.
Okay, perfect. You can answer this question for me then. It felt like a thing of like, this feels like it's me. Like, I'm not getting this. Like, I'm not understanding this, because it sees on the one hand to want to be like, oh, is Bruce Willis actually from the future, or is he insane? But it seems to be really want us to understand that he's from the future, but it really wants to play up the mystery as to whether or not he is from the future or not, and it's trying to like have it both ways, and it just didn't work for me. And I couldn't tell if it was just like I'm just not jiving with this movie, or if it's like the movie's bad. It's one of those times where that happens to me every once in a while, where I'm like, do I genuinely think this movie's bad, or am I just not the right audience for this?
I mean, I always got the sense that he did go back.
Right. The movie seems to really want to like be about the fact that So for Jordan, because he's blinking at me like he has no idea what 12 Monkeys is.
Not a clue.
Bruce Willis plays a convict in a dystopian future where a virus has wiped out most of humanity, and they're trying to get back onto the surface of the planet, and they send Bruce Willis back in time to find out where the virus originates from, so they can like study it or something, because the entire movie's point seems to be that you can't change the past. Because Bruce Willis is constantly like, you can't change it. It happened. It constantly happened. I can't change it. I can't. And then the ending of the movie, it's revealed that like because Bruce Willis the whole movie is having like visions of like seeing some guy get shot in an airport, and it's revealed that he was there and he saw himself get shot at the airport while trying to stop the doctor who has the virus. But it seems to indicate that the dog intentionally released the virus. It's very confusing. I was very confused at the end, and I couldn't tell if like it was like I'm dumb, or if the movie is just like not explaining itself well. What did I lose you guys again?
Briefly.
It's good to know it's not just me, that it is you.
Okay.
No, it is your fault, Justin.
I mean, that makes sense.
It's all you. It's not. It has nothing to do with me, and it's 100% you. That makes me feel better.
We have a shit desktop computer. But with that, yeah, that was 12 Monkeys. I just was like, it's all right. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's my least favorite dystopian movie I watched this week. Dystopian apocalypse movies. I don't know. Jordan, what's your final one?
My final one, because
Quickly.
I had to do one.
Quickly.
My final. I'm trying. Stop interrupting me, sir. My final one, because I had to do one that had zombies in it, because it was a post-apocalyptic challenge, is World War Z. Brad Pitt, World War Z, zombies. Doesn't really do much for me. Checks all the boxes. It's got zombies. There's Brad Pitt. It's fine.
I have a feeling, because I've not read the book, but I watched the movie. I didn't care for it. I thought it was okay.
I thought it was okay.
But I hear the book is really good, because the book, apparently, like I said, I haven't read it yet, but I've been told the book has a lot more to do with like the geopolitics after the zombie apocalypse, and how like Israel ends up emerging as like a superpower because of its location and walls, and the fact that they do a lot of like biomedical research and whatnot. And then there's some, so I'm keen to read the book, because I think it'll be similar to the I Am Legend phenomenon, where I think the book will be tremendously better than the movie. But yeah, I mean, the concept of running zombies though makes me feel like humanity wouldn't stand a chance.
I mean,
they really, in terms of the movie, they really didn't. At pretty much every opportunity when it was zombie versus humans, the zombies kind of kicked the humans' ass. So,
but Brad Pitt had plot armor.
Speaking
of Brad Pitt, I forgot to mention in 12 Monkeys, Brad Pitt is phenomenal in that movie. Like, he is so against type. He's just this insane maniac who's like this conspiracy-addled nutcase. And like, there was moments I completely forgot he was Brad Pitt, which is very rare, because Brad Pitt is in World War Z. He's Brad Pitt.
Yeah, fun fact. I once during a podcast was trying to allude to the fact that there were some movies that Brad Pitt did that were like kind of iffy because of Brad Pitt, but then I ate crow again, kind of like my Australia not having a legacy of cinema moment, where my co-host is just like, name one, and I'm like, well, there's I mean, it's not a good movie, but it's not because of Brad Pitt. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I stand corrected. Brad Pitt is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he can be. It's just there's just certain movies where he's just like he's good in them. He's just Brad Pitt. Like, and that's World War Z is one of them where I'm like he's Brad Pitt. He's not. I couldn't tell you the name of the character. He's just Brad Pitt.
Yeah. Speaking of, because we were talking about movies that are bad, but I love them. Speaking of Brad Pitt, that's the movie Troy for me.
Yeah,
Troy is an abomination of a movie, both in filmmaking, narrative storytelling, and history alike. But I really like it.
I mean, yeah, that happens.
Fair enough.
That's fair. That's completely fair.
I mean, it's painful. It's painful because I'm like, whoever wrote this clearly read Spark Notes of the Iliad and chose to ignore certain parts of it. But I'm entertained.
The thing for me when it comes to a movie where it's like a black mark on a movie is if it was so boring that I fell asleep. And I fell asleep about half an hour into the movie, woke up, and then immediately had to go back to the beginning to the first half, after that first half an hour, and then proceed to spend another almost 2 hours rewatching the entire movie, and being like,
I need to say something about this.
Yeah, I have to stay awake long enough to have some sort of opinion on this. One thing that kind of blows my mind. Apparently, it had a budget of 190 to 269 million, and it made a 540.5 million at the box office. Having watched the movie, big deal.
Yeah, modest hit.
I can't believe that. It's not that great.
They've been talking about it.
Maybe that's a hot topic, but you know.
No, I remember when World War Z came out, it was a big deal, and a lot of people were excited to see it. But then everyone was just. Some people loved it, but most people were just kind of like, eh.
It's fine.
That's how I remember feeling about it.
But they still paid to go see it. So and some people clearly liked it, but it was a big deal when it came out. They were really marketing it. And that was kind of at the height of, zombies were in vogue again. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's when The Walking Dead's coming out, and you're absolutely right. Yeah. So that's it for World War Z, Jordan?
That's it. I didn't really have much more to say.
The final piece we're going to talk about today is not a movie, and we can do it very quick. Are you familiar with the works of Darren Brown, Jake?
It's not sounding familiar, but that doesn't mean I'm not aware.
Darren Brown he's a mentalist and a magician, and he utilizes mentalism techniques and hypnosis techniques and creates various social experiments. So he did the one for Netflix called The Push, where he essentially convinced a guy to push a guy off a roof. He mentally conditioned him to push him off the roof. Well, the one I'm doing that's topical, he did one called Apocalypse, where he convinced a guy that the apocalypse had happened, and he polluted the world with actors, and basically gave them very basic and limited instructions, and in the pursuit of making this guy a better person. He's like a kind of a lazy kind of not apathetic person who doesn't really care about stuff, and it's all in the pursuit of trying to make him a better person and appreciate his life. And it's just so incredible how using the correct methods of suggestions you can this guy fully believed and fully thought his family was in danger, and by basically he utilized this actual event of this comet going by to convince this guy that this asteroid had essentially caused a zombie apocalypse, basically. And it's effectively about using these social manipulation techniques and actors. And the actors are incredible. They give these incredible performances where he just kind of gives them loose directions, and it's just kind of do this, and they feel like real people. And it's a TV show. It's on YouTube. It's very interesting. Push, which is not zombie apocalypse related, is very good. I know I've had Jordan watch it before. It's really good just to see
that one I've seen.
To see how easily it is to use those social mentalism style techniques to make people do something
psychological tricks.
Yeah, that they wouldn't otherwise do. It was very interesting. It was very cool to see how thoroughly he could convince this person. And there's a level of this feels unethical, to essentially because I read after Push, the person who was involved in that had to get mental therapy because they couldn't determine what was real and what was fake or not, because they had really
that's kind of what I was thinking. This sounds like it's wrong, but I'll tell you what, It sounds like I may have found my new campaign manager.
Look, hey man, it's
Have his
effective.
people have my people contact his people. If he can tell a guy to jump off a building, he can get people to vote for me.
Well, I mean, I think I won't give away the ending of it, but it's really if you have Netflix, it's totally worth checking out because the ending of it is kind of surprising. It's funny. He had another one where he took a racist, like a real hardcore racist guy from the South, and convinced him to take a bullet for a Mexican, and it's like wow.
I think we can kill two birds with one stone. We can have them brainwash them to vote for me, and if it doesn't work, brainwash them to jump off a building instead of voting for sleepy Joe Biden.
So, with that,
that's a terrifying thought.
that ends our time at the end of the world, I think. I mean, with that, we move on to Jake. We move on to the assignment for next week, and with the assignment for next week, Jake, I'm going to turn to you, and I'm going to ask you: is there a topic you think we should cover, or is there a topic you think we've already covered you want to see a sequel to?
That's a very good question.
Because we did the ladies for Haley, so I was trying to think of one that would pertain to one of your podcasts, but
so what might be fun, because we kind of touched on this in a couple of different levels, but I don't know that you've done an episode in it, and I don't know what the technical term would be, so I'll use an example. So we discussed things like the 2009 Star Trek, which was a reboot, but not really.
The requel.
Kind of. I'm basically taking like a much older intellectual property and really breathing new life into it in a different form, though.
Okay.
And then like there's Mad Max. I don't know what you would call that. I guess you guys have already kind of done reboots, haven't you?
No, we haven't done reboots on ours. We could do reboots. I could do reboots. Reboots sound interesting. I had reboots on the mind for a couple of things. I got some stuff. I got some workings. I can do
reboots.
I can work with reboots. So
Interesting.
Next week, we're gonna do reboots. Leave suggestions in the comments. We this is the part where I plug all of our shit. We are on Discord, so follow us on Discord. Give us suggestions there. You can email the show. It's justinsbusiness@hotmail.com. Jake, where can the people find you?
AreteMedia.org. I am jake.account.ability on Instagram, Arete Media on YouTube, and TikTok.
Yes, go follow.
And technically, you can follow Down the Middle P on Twitter, but I'll be honest, I don't use Twitter. I hate Twitter. I begrudgingly use it.
I don't. Everyone's like, you should make a Twitter, and I'm like, I'm okay.
That site's dying anyway.
I'm okay. If it really push comes to shove, I might, but no, I'm okay. Jordan, where can they find you?
I do Minecraft Monday on Twitch on ZethGore187. That's pretty much it. And then this.
I'm on TikTok. You can find me on TikTok. All the links are in below. I've also linked all of Jake's stuff to all of his various profiles and pages and whatnot, so you can go check out all of those.
Who added the Donald Trump hashtag to the fucking title?
I did, because I was like, this feels dangerous, and I love a little bit of danger. I'm sure we're gonna make some of them unhappy. I'm so excited for the shorts that are gonna come out of this episode, because they're gonna get views, but they're not gonna make people happy. Hey, I said the movie was favorable to him. Go back and watch the beginning of the episode. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Jake. This has been a marathon of a podcast, but it's been a great time.
Thank you for having me. It tends to happen when I get involved. I'm good at derailing.
That's okay.
Like I said, there was two of us this time.
And check out all of Jake's stuff. Stick around. I feel like we all got big stuff happening. We will see you guys next week with reboots.